This conference will now be recorded.
This is Fremont 25's 2019 Facility Plan meeting with the State Construction Department, and we'll go around the table and introduce ourselves.
Larry Hartwell, Facility Supervisor.
Good afternoon, Brandon Finney, State Construction. My role with the team is to work through the facility planning process. We identify any capital construction needs, and then the team and we all put it together and present it to legislative bodies in anticipation for an appropriation.
Terry Snyder, Superintendent, Fremont County School District number 25.
Ted May, Buildings and Grounds Coordinator, Fremont County School District 25.
Julie Mason, Senior Accountant, Fremont 25.
Boo Beecham, Business Manager, Fremont 25.
Steve McDonald, I'm you guys' Project Manager for Fremont 25. I'll be working with Larry and Ted on major maintenance orders, capital projects, and those things.
By the way, on the way up, they said very nice things about you.
Oh, really? All good, huh?
They were.
Who's they?
All of them. No, we're glad to have you.
Oh, I thought it was the woman selling us burritos at McDonald's.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're enjoying Steve. Troy Decker, Planning. My job is to make sure we abide by all state statutes, rules, and regs with regard to facility planning, make sure that we capture all in the database and update everything so that we can have accurate reports to the commission and to the select committee, and then work on the budgetary team for getting ready for recommendations for appropriations.
Amber Leach with planning, and my role during this is to work with the districts and the documentation for today's facility plan.
Raj Dami, I'm the accounting analyst, and Amber and I have kind of assumed Charlie's role. He's moved on to Plat 1, so I've been just helping these guys out with the facility plan, especially things that do with the AIM database.
Okay, I don't see anybody on, but if someone does come on, someone can let me know. Okay, thanks. Will might be joining us. I'm going to go ahead and turn off our webcam so that we don't have any streaming issues, just in case. So with that, we'll go ahead and start down. A couple things, I think, on the front end, I did kind of highlight Dell's name, and he has been on the road this week, and we're anticipating him to arrive, but if he doesn't, I guess you're going to get a presentation to us. What's that? Yeah, Paul Severson is like under Shelley's direct supervision getting ready for commission meetings, so I'll highlight him too. We'll see if he shows up. Thanks, Brandon. We're missing some sites, so I just did the whole thing and put it up there so that make sure we have it. So a couple things about these facility plans. They've developed, I think we started, I don't know if you guys, some of you remember Jim Lowen, Dr. Lowen, former superintendent out of Natrona County. He was a deputy director here. And then the director was their board president actually at one point, but he came here to be director. But anyway, we started facility planning way back when, and I remember Laramie too was actually the very first facility planning this organization ever had. And I was on the other end though, right? I was on the school district side. But anyway, we've developed it pretty well. And one of the things we recognize is we do get requests from the governor's office periodically and from individual legislators for facility plans. So these are, the visuals in these are just not for the fun of it. I mean, number one is you guys have turnover in your district, and it's good to have this continuity and be able to track what's been presented, what's been prioritized and stuff like that. But also it's good for us because we have turnover, and it's good for those above us in the state level that if they ask in 10 minutes, they can have a very good understanding of your district. So that's why we do all the visuals in this. We started using the county GIS sites, as you well know, several years ago. I think it was last year, and so I think that's helped also in accuracy of database stuff. And then the other thing I want to say is Amber is we have. Okay, Ken, have you joined us? And the other, I'll see when his audio comes on. The other thing we've done in this is we've had Amber really work with the school districts one-on-one. As you well know, she has pre-meetings, final meetings, and then we have this meeting. So she actually does 3 meetings every time we have a facility plan process. But the important part of that is that different districts are at different stages, different capabilities, different experiences, and she can customize. If you've been around a long time and do this on a regular basis, you guys can whip through it pretty quick, and everybody's happy and we get the right information. Sometimes we have brand new superintendent, business manager, and facilities director, and you have to take a lot of time to help them understand facility planning. So that's very individualized. But the important part of that is, as we move on, hey, Ken, we can see you, but we cannot hear you yet. And if you're having a hard, we for sure can't hear you, but there's also a phone number on there you can dial in, and oh, there you are. So the good thing about this is we used to spend a lot of time on the database, and look how many people are around this table. Plus we have Ken Tobin join us. It's kind of a waste of time, really, for everybody to be looking at did you get that acreage right? So this first part we're going to kind of go through fairly quickly, and that's why your team did that on the front end, so we can get to the stuff that really needs to be discussed in a large group. Ken, we see you have audio now. Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can. Troy, I'll be on for about 15. Josh Schmidt's in the room with us, and Will should be back within the hour and is going to try and join in too if there's any meeting left at that time. I'll be listening in. Go ahead, Troy.
Sounds good. Okay. I think we're gonna, I really don't have anywhere else to put you, but I'll put you on the district side.
Yeah, other, that's good, that's good.
How's that?
That looks good, looks good.
Yep. You're an important person. We gotta make sure you're down.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. We're just waiting for Dell, so we're kind of going through the facility plan until he comes.
Fine,
So.
yeah. Longer it takes, better chance Will be able to attend.
Okay, wonderful.
Take your time, Troy.
Well,
Principal, I think, a teacher. Education. I think console.
How's the rest of your guys' drive? 80 was about the best I've seen it. They had that high wind thing, so there wasn't very many trucks on there. It was just wet. So
it was good.
It was good.
Yeah,
it was wet.
Great.
Riverton to Muddy Gap was pretty much.
Yeah, wasn't bad.
okay, everybody, this is being recorded. Just remind everybody who just joined us. We have Ken Tobin also who just joined us. I wasn't picking on you. So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and go right into the presentation and most cost-effective remedy study, which is an acronym, which we learned today. So with that, Terry, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you and let you just let me know when you want me to go on.
And you can go through the slides.
Yeah. Do you think I should pause this? I'm going to record it or just keep it going? Yeah, we'll just keep going. Go ahead.
This was a result of one of our sessions, was it 2 years ago, where Troy looked at it and at our district needs and said, boy, I think we need to do a study of District 25, the costs you have for repair, the projects that need to get done, and the dollars you're getting in major maintenance. I have a concern about that. So the discussion was with the district, would you be willing to be part of a pilot that would look at our facility utilization, our square footage, excessive square footage, and to see if there's a way we can use our existing square footage in a different way and possibly then reduce some square footage, which then could reduce the major maintenance costs and your ability to support all of your other buildings, because you have some of the older buildings in the state on the average. So we agreed to be part of that with the idea that we knew the state was running a little short on money, and if there's a way we could be part of that solution rather than just asking for more money, could we find a way to save money? So we've tried to maybe be both of those. So that's how it started. Tobin and Associates, they were hired to assist in the study, and I want to acknowledge the work that Tobin and Associates have done. I think their per hour value has gone way down because the numbers have gone way up in the work they've done, but they've stuck with it as we in the state have asked for more information. So I want to thank you for that, Ken. You guys have done a great job. You've done a great
I'll
job.
I'll let Will know that.
Really appreciate it. Will's been awesome to work with. When we looked at the district, we had 3 years ago opened a new elementary because we were short on capacity for our elementary students. And we had old buildings, so the state funded a new building for us. Our growth projections at the time was that we would be at capacity or over capacity of all of our elementaries when that building opened. Well, the economy changed, we lost enrollment, and Riverton has lost residency in those years. So we ended up being then long on capacity, and that's what necessitated this. I already mentioned that we have some of the older buildings. I don't know exactly where we sit, but I know we have some of the older averages in the state. I think we're as old or top 2 or 3 somewhere in there. And when we looked at it, like so many districts, we had excessive square footage, but yet we had some areas that were just clearly excessive square footage, it seemed like. And then there wasn't going to be enough major maintenance funding to support all the buildings, and that's what Troy identified for us in saying, what if we did a pilot study? So then when you look at our excessive square footage, we end up with having 184,000 excessive square footage. And as we know, some of our buildings were built at a time when there weren't those regulations. So we, like many districts, have excessive square footage. But here's our problem that we have as far as when it comes to cost, is that our deferred maintenance is over $13 million. And we have component projects of about $7 million that are requested. And our 5-year total for major maintenance projected to be about $7.5 million. And those numbers are critical because later in this study, you're going to see we have one building, which is Tonkin Activity Center, that to get it repaired up to an acceptable level is right at $6.8 million. So it would take our next 5 years of major maintenance money solely focused on that, the 1s and 2s in Tonkin, to get it to acceptable level. And that would mean the abandonment of all of our other buildings. And when you look at our deferred maintenance, that one building by itself is half of those deferred maintenance costs. So that is the elephant. It's not even the elephant in the room. It's everybody knows and sees that that is our problem, or at least one of our problems.
Superintendent, if I could ask a question real quick on that previous slide. Yep. You said you have component projects requested. Is that gone through the request process, and is that what we're funding in that list, or is that the requested that's in the big list that is the commission this time?
I'm going to ask you the same thing.
Yeah, or a mix up.
I was wondering if that's funds that have already been appropriated, because this district's asked for a lot and received quite a bit, or is that money that's being asked?
So let me bring you down to answer that.
Well, if you got it later in the slide, we can go on and you'll answer it there. I just
It's not in this slide. It's in our
Facility plan.
Okay.
I was wondering the same thing though.
Let me show you.
Tweet the name on it when it goes public. Has this gone out?
I did a presentation to the public a week ago, yeah. And Troy came and really appreciated his attendance for that.
They might not know those details, you know.
Yeah, when it
down
goes,
to the pension.
that's what we want to talk about when we go to the commission,
Yeah. Requested or appropriated.
and it may be both, combination of both. Out of the 6, maybe 3's coming forward, and there's another 3 requests.
They're all, I think it's all appropriate.
I think
Is it? Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I was wondering.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think it's
appropriated.
We haven't spent, but it's been appropriate.
Yeah, okay, cool,
That's the right
good.
term.
So here's the updated, back then, do you see these top ones here? Is that big enough for everybody?
Yeah.
So the top ones here were the ones that we had previously that we're talking about. Now, some of them I think, well, actually, are all of those? I think all of those were component.
Yeah.
So what happened now, since then, in the green here, this is what else they have gotten.
Okay,
Okay?
So it's all appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah.
okay, cool,
So,
good.
okay.
Yep, that answers the question.
Good question.
So we did.
So is the 6.9 larger now? As of
What?
today?
Have to go. It's substantial, yeah.
Okay, so just hit the process. I've kind of hit some of those points on that as far as the study that was done, the data that was collected, our percent of utilization. And then as we went through that, at the district level, we looked at a number of ideas, as did Tobin and Associates, provided insight and ideas and suggestions along the way. So what you will see as far as a most cost-effective remedy, I don't know, this is probably about our 13th plan on it, but because we kept trying to find more and more efficient ways to make this work. And I think that was our bottom line thinking, is not just to create a plan, but really to be cost conscious as we went through this. So we had a lot of discussions with that. We refined it, and then we come down to our preferred solution. And it says not truly final, but yet I think we've done a lot of work, and I think we're pretty close to saying, yeah, this is where we need to move forward with it. So now we get to our preferred remedy. These numbers I've talked about already. We had low utilization of, this is an old high school actually called Tonkin Activity Center. Other parts of the high school to the left of there had already been torn down years ago. We have an old football field in the back, which we've moved over to a new field turf, which is 10 years old actually, and that transition went very well. Now this is building here has 11% utilization. We have our alternative high school in there and day reporting center. Day reporting center is a court involved cooperative with all of the school districts in Fremont County. Instead of sending them to Casper and other places across the state, we've truly saved the state hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably a couple $100,000 every year by doing this, but it took a little space somewhere in the county, and we are the ones who house that. So we have about 35 kids in this building, and of course that's a big factor on considering the investment from the state. But we also have just a couple tenants. Both Fremont County BOCES is there, as is a branch of WEA or WDE. And the WDE, on the left, you'll see a 3-story building. They had over 2 floors of that occupied probably 10 to 12 years ago, and now they're about at a floor or less. They continue to move more and more people down to Cheyenne, and I anticipate it won't be long until everybody's down here, and that is not used by them anymore. BOCES takes a couple rooms, so all that put together, we have about 11% utilization. We also, during season, have our wrestling program in the old gymnasium piece. The condition of that building actually is number 10 I saw on the latest list as far as worst condition buildings in the state. And to get it up to that acceptable level, as I said, we were right at that $6.8 million. Now, we did this study, and I've been in Riverton 8 years, and Stan Hobbs, the very first year I was there, says, you can't afford to keep Tonkin open. You need to tear that thing down. I just closed the football stadium. I didn't think it was wise politically to close Tonkin also. But no, that's really a side issue. But yet he was right. I mean, his instincts were right. And I think Troy's instincts were right when he recommended the study. And Larry said that for years. He said, man, we're putting so much money into this building. How do we keep doing it? So this study, I think, just reaffirmed actually some very logical thinking that had taken place through the years. So this is the building from above. The area that we're looking at, yeah, that little round room down there in the middle of the screen. Actually, it's a 12-sided room. So those of you know a 12-sided room, It shouldn't be called a round room, it should be called a
12-sided room.
the decagon room. That was a good guess. And then that 3-story section is that elongated area. The big area there, of course, is the gymnasium. Just to the right of the gymnasium was a swimming pool area. And then to the south side of that is other south side.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. That area there is 2 levels of classroom, and the Buildings and Grounds Department is on the top floor of that. So that's the structure we're looking at as far as when we talk about the Tonkin Activity Center. So we then started looking at saying, if we do have to close this down, where do we put our programs? And I won't go every single program, but what you can see there is that we can relocate all of our programs to other buildings with either little or no expansion, except the day reporting. We actually have enough square footage to put those 10 to 12 students, but the location of those students who are court involved, it's just not a good idea to put highly troubled teenagers next to 5-year-olds, or even 4th or 5th grade, because those are the 2 buildings we have in our elementary. So we're going to have to find a place in a county building somewhere in Riverton to move that. But everything else worked out really well. Frontier Academy can move, and we can move Larry and storage and our wrestling and BOCES, our dance, cheer, and all that. We think we can, for a very reasoned cost of remodel, completely close down Tonkin, which is about 63,000 square feet. 64, close to 65. So it's a big building, and that's, I think, good news. So as we go through these, now you start seeing the moves. Frontier Academy actually is going to go over to a building that was an industrial tech shop years ago when the high school was there, and now it's a maintenance building. It's the brown building down there. So it seems like oddity that we would move that, but yet it's a very open building and could be converted very nicely. The next one is take a look at our property over at the high school, and our career center is part of that. It's in that lower left hand in the middle of the screen. That's our CTE program areas with special ed programming over there, and then the high school is to the right. So when we look at the career center, this is an area on the right hand side that we can make that from that brown building over into here. We have significant excessive square footage in our CTE programs, and everybody that I say we're moving into, somebody's going to have to move out, because when you have square footage, you use it. So not that this is a done cartwheels over plan, but I think not everybody, most people in the district understand what we're trying to do with the study. So we can take some of that space, the dance area. That's a large open classroom area. That area could work for dance. Then when we go, and this is our preferred option, and this is the part that seems a bit odd, but would be to add some square footage to our high school right off of our gymnasium and wrestling room in that blue area down there. They have 2,300 square feet there. That's kind of what came off of Tobin's recommendation for guideline. At our meeting, we had concern expressed about the size of that room, with some community members believing it needed to be larger, but yet we're not going to discuss that need at this point. We're just the concept of that being added on to the high school. It ends up being a pretty reasonable build because you have 2 walls there already, and that helps cost. So once again, trying to find a way to make it cost effective. This actually is over $600,000 cheaper than if we remodeled the career center, which I'll show you as we go along here.
Superintendent, question on that. I see, I'm guessing those circles are the mats.
Yes.
Is that weights and that stuff included, or is that just a wrestling room and you have
That's just
weights or something somewhere else?
The weights are to the rooms to the left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Existing.
Okay.
That
So
exists.
yeah.
Yeah, and actually that room clear to the left on the bottom, that used to be the old wrestling room.
Okay.
And they said they had some injuries because it was too tight. So that's, they're concerned because that blue area looks pretty close
Pretty
to
much
that.
same thing.
Yeah. So, but yet that's something we can deal with at the local level with extra costs attached to it if we would choose to go bigger. Okay, so now as we continue to look at other moves, Department of Ed's the green. We have a couple rooms there. As I said, those are full right now, but to make this work, and we know we have excessive square footage in this building, we could find a way. Department of Ed and BOCES both are tenants. They pay a fee, but they're about 40 cents on the dollar as far as what it costs to rent something downtown. So we don't get a lot. I think about $15,000 a year from both of those combined. So it's not a big income to us either. And then we have a couple of standalone buildings out back we can use for storage and some custodial supplies. As we go to Aspen Early Learning Center, up at the top, that would be the Fremont County BOCES. Take 3 of those classrooms. This is our preschool kindergarten building. And we have, even with the use of that, I think have 2 additional rooms left. So that's where we could put day reporting center, but once again, high school at-risk kids with 5-year-olds.
Superintendent, don't mean to keep interrupting, but
No,
this is for
go ahead.
Troy.
Yep.
Both on the previous screen and this screen, normally they'll receive major maintenance based on capacity in the schools. And if they aren't full, they don't receive as much major maintenance. Since they have, I'm assuming, excess capacity, that's why they can move people in here. Since that's a state operation on that one, and the other one is a BOCES operation, they're both kind of, I think, by the legislature and the governor, everybody, certainly by WDE, they're supported. The concept of those things being support for schools, if they put people in those rooms, would we provide more major maintenance for them to help offset that?
So BOCES is a qualified educational program.
So BOCES, yes.
Yes.
How about WDE?
No.
Okay. That might be something. That might be something for
Help a little bit. Yeah.
us to talk to the legislature about in this upcoming select committee meetings or something, because again, if WDE, now if they rent, we don't pay major maintenance, but like where WDE's in buildings here, if it's a state-owned building, then over on my other side of the house, the construction management side, we'd be providing major maintenance dollars for the buildings they're in. So what I'm wondering is, since they're in a school building, of course, WD has a minimal link to schools, but some link. Shouldn't the state maybe be helping out a district if they're, like you say, they're saving 40 cents on the dollar?
Right. They're saving 60 cents.
They're 60 cents on the dollar. They're only spending 40.
Right.
Shouldn't we maybe help with that square footage, because it is a school function?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Amber's going to double check me on that answer.
Okay.
I know they get,
Statute.
BOCES qualifies,
Yeah.
but I don't think we get any extra for
Yeah.
the WDE.
But it is a state agency, so she's going to look that up.
Yeah, and we'll,
There's something there, but
and if we don't, I think that's, again, I don't know if this is just kind of unique and you're one of the few that do this, but
I
to
don't
me, it's.
know of anybody else who
Yeah,
does.
it's something
Yeah.
for what we should do. You probably ought to try and get a credit for it or something.
I think we're the only satellite area, so I'm guessing that
Yeah.
doesn't exist anywhere else. I appreciate that. Hey, and interrupt anytime. Okay, so when we go to a cost factor here, this is with the wrestling room at the high school. But I'll get to that in just a second. Let's look at the demolition costs. And this is one of the things when we went to School Facilities Commission, a few months ago, they wanted to be as close on demolition costs as we could. So additional information was gathered on the cost of demolition, and we end up with about $1.1 million in demolition costs. That is actually, I'm gonna have to get my sheet updated here because my sheet shows different. So I think Larry's yours is the accurate one. So I just need to get a new print. But because I thought it was 1.1 million. This cost could be eliminated if we can find new tenants, new ownership, not tenants, new ownership for that building. I think there's a possibility. The likelihood, I believe, is less than 50-50. We've had 4 entities come and look at the building. We've had a Native American Health Service organization look at it. We've had an individual from town who thinks maybe some city functions could be consolidated in this building. We've had another one was the Fremont County Museum. They're looking at new square footage, but they probably need 30,000 square feet rather than 65,000 square feet. But that doesn't mean we couldn't partner with somebody. The city took a look at it for a variety of functions. We've also done a tour with a group called Mission Possible, which was a group that wanted to start a recreation program. That group, I think, is off the table. When they looked at it, they thought, gosh, if there's a gym there, we're good to go. We have a facility. But then when they realized, and at the time I gave them a tour, I said it's going to be between about 5 and 6 million because we didn't have our exact numbers. And the final numbers end up being about 6-8. So I don't think they're a player anymore. I'm not so sure that the Native American Health Group won't be a player. And then the city possibly. So we don't have that, we haven't removed that as an option, but the board believes, along with the state, also, that we can't just transfer ownership without a sustainability study and function plan, strategic plan for use, because if let's say we gift it to an organization, they don't come up with the funds to do those repairs, and in 5 years it ends up being boarded up, graffiti, vandalized. The community will still believe it's our building, and it'll look like it's our building, especially with our central office right there. So that's all part of our criteria, and I think the demolition is a likelihood need cost. So that's a part of this plan, but there's a possibility that 1.1 wouldn't be a necessity, but I think needs to be planned for. And we asked in this study that we be given time to vet those options to the community to make sure we run out of those. Troy was at our meeting and we had good input. I was kind of just telling him a little story. One of the participants there, he understood why we can't afford to keep it, but he said, Terry, you need to keep it open. And then I talked some more, and he goes, I know you can't afford to keep it, but I expect you to keep it open. So there's that sentiment, the history behind it, but yet we didn't have a huge turnout for that, about 6 or 7 folks there. I anticipated some of these interested parties to be there. They weren't. I'm not sure what that means, but I think through this process, our community is very aware of what we're doing with the study, why we're doing the study, to try to save the state money, to be part of efficiency study with the state, even though we may have to abandon one of the historical buildings. So that's there, that 1.1 million. Then you have the renovation costs. And as you look at those costs, it's the wrestling room, it's the career center, and then there's the move of Frontier over to that old maintenance facility. That adds up to about $1.3 million, a little bit of moving costs. But so when you look at that, that's a pretty well reasoned, I think, expense. And if you can save $6.8 million, and it only costs you 1.3 to move everything, that's a pretty good financial plan, it seems to me like, as far as the state. And that's really what I think this study was about, is we have buildings in the state, we have excess square footage. Are there some places we could shut down? We might have to pay a little bit to make some moves, but yet. So I think that's part of the concept we were looking for. If we can save 6.8 and it only costs 1.3, taking out the demolition costs. Even with the demolition costs, it's 2.4. So you have that $4.6 million savings. That's kind of at the minimum savings. So then we have another plan to move some things around, and I'll go through this one quickly. The big one is over Career Center. This is why this one costs us more to use our existing square footage as opposed to add square footage. The wrestling room would go down into that area that was dance, and then those areas in the purple and blue, that's locker room space we would have to add for that program, both male and female, with a handicap restroom in the middle. And then dance moves up there clear at the top of the building, and Larry stays over there to the right. So those costs to remodel that are about $600,000 more than if we do the addition at the high school. So even though it seems like it just using space you have, it's actually more expensive.
Hey, Terry, on that one, it looks like you're almost identical, 3760 on the two. Wrestling and the maintenance office, those
Right.
are pretty well like. Why wouldn't you flip those where wrestling could be in the 3760, but there's no obstructions?
We need storage.
Egress, probably.
We need storage. We need. This is a heightened space. That's the one on the right.
On the right, the
It's
yellow.
like a garage.
Oh.
It's a 30-foot.
If Larry wasn't so tall, you wouldn't have to worry about it.
We wouldn't.
Goodness.
But if Larry retires and Ted takes over, yeah, we can forward soon.
Yeah, so the one on the right, Troy, has two roll-up doors in it and those types of things.
More
So we
for
can get our forklift in there, we can get, our maintenance facility, our pickups in there and all that kind of
It's more of a
stuff.
shop.
Yeah, it's a shop.
It's a shop.
There
Yeah.
you go. Thank you, Brandon.
Is this depiction here, the wrestling room, is that the room that has all those pillars in it?
Yes.
Can they be removed, or?
No.
Construction.
Which is a safety concern
Yeah.
too. But we would have to pad them, and also those smaller rooms, those are a gut job out. So that's where those costs come in with that. But I appreciate the question on that other space because it looks the same, but it's different structure. Okay, so when you go with that one, then you end up with additional costs, and but even then you save money on it. So when you look at and we have to look at this, Troy, because that says 1.2, so why was it 1.1 on the other one?
I
Well,
was gonna ask
because
that same question. Why is your demo change?
Yeah.
the demo changed up here because of what he did is he put all of this
I know.
into there. So we have some additional abatement we're gonna have to do at the Career Center.
Yep.
Because we're right now in the process of doing some abatement at the Career Center for our special needs restroom that's being funded. Right. So that's where all that, so we'll put all the demo like you would do in a normal project, kind of up in the front end up here. So this is all demo, and then you move into the construction.
So that demo is also on the other building.
It'd also be on the Career
So
Center.
we got blending.
Yes,
Got it.
exactly.
Yep. So when you look at the intent of this study, and going back to kind of Troy's challenge and invitation to be part of a pilot study, I think this study met that objective very well. And I don't know that other districts could cut out 6.8 million because they may not have buildings that are in as bad a shape as this. But to me, this is a good example of we can take those expenses off of the books, spend a little money, and save a lot of money. Yeah. So I think the design of the study was well intended, and I think this was a good example. Is that, and I look at it as a partnership of the local school district, because we can't continue the functionality of Tonkin. We just can't, and take care of our other buildings. The other buildings that we have that really cost us, for example, is our new 37-year-old high school. Everybody in town thinks it's new. It's 37 years old, going on 38. Our new middle school is right at 20 years old. And then you throw in our built in the 60s 3 elementaries right in the middle of town, Jackson, Rendezvous, and Ash Grove, and we have major work that we need to do on them. So we can't put our money into Tonkin anymore. We have to do that. And those component projects, that's where some of those costs are. We have to do the plumbing and roofing at Jackson Elementary, for example. And those are important if we're going to continue to use those buildings. So the result of this study seemed to be a good result.
Yeah, I'm assuming these costs are a one-time, so this is a yearly, and this is, of course, if you get rid of, that's that deferment, so that goes away. But this is a yearly.
Yes.
I'd almost add one more column here of, maybe say this is first time or yearly cost reduction, and then an ongoing, because in the future, if you don't get rid of it, you've got this 77,000 every year thereafter.
You could do a 5-year cost, 10-year cost, 20-year cost.
Like that. Yeah, maybe you take, like, say, 1 year, 5, 10 or something.
And that's part of what kills us, because you're exactly right. It's not just to get it up to acceptable level, it's to run this building.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're still adding those costs every year. That other stuff, it's 279 million a year.
And I can talk to Will. I don't know if Will's there yet or not.
Not yet.
Okay, but that it sounds like that. I agree that'd be a great consideration, because then those are our local costs to consider too. So.
Well, you were looking on that very first slide with your first option and the additional square footage there, and that was 2.4 million. So you got 277,000. In 10 years, you pay back just on the operating costs.
You do.
Not the ongoing. And because you're underfunded on your major maintenance, your ones and twos or your deferred maintenance is actually going to go up in the future.
They will, yes.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
so, like you say, just a cost benefit ratio in less than 10 years, you pay for that stuff up above there.
Right.
Including demo. And if you don't add demo, you pay it back in 4 years.
Right.
Yeah, and as we know, the 2s are only going to go to 1 when FEA or whoever comes back out now, and the 3s are going to go to 2s because,
And we've already, not this past summer, the summer before, so 2 summers ago, we were scheduled to do a roof replacement over the gymnasium, and we put that off because of Troy.
Yeah.
And this study.
Is this being recorded? It wasn't.
Honestly, I think that was great. A great challenge to us, because it's just a money pit that is costing the state, it's costing us, it's just a double cost for everybody. So
I guess where this study is kind of unique is the fact that we've been in this capitalization mode,
right?
And we're building and reinvesting and stuff like this. And when you talk about an asset preservation, you're really looking at it. And I really like your idea, Dale, because over the next 5 years, it would be very interesting to see what is the bottom line. They're all state monies. Now, we're the facilities, state facilities, and here's education, but it's all state monies.
Absolutely.
And so when you look at this holistically on state monies, you see that you're saving a lot of state monies in the long run.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the one thing that I like about this is it's opening up. It's not everything fits in to the slot that we've been using all these years. And perhaps maybe what we're trying to do may not fit in a slot that can be appropriated, by the way. We don't know that. But we recognize and can reveal the fact that it's all state monies, and if you do this, it's going to save X number of monies estimated down the road. Now, how that can happen for sure, Dell, I'm not sure, because we're going to talk about that in just a minute here. I think there's 2 sides to this. It's all state monies, right, and what the dollars really mean for the state of Wyoming. And then here's the state statute, here's the rules and regs, here's how we prioritize projects. And those two I think have a kind of a separation from right now. It just doesn't meld or blend into an easy solution with regard to appropriation requests, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But anyway, does that make sense?
It does, but
it's tough.
Also, something else that you said makes sense, and that's why we participate in the study, because even a couple years ago, we could see the state's funding sources were shrinking. And how do we use those state funds efficiently, and not just to get by 2 or 3 years? We could keep this building open for another 3 to 5 years, let's say, but yet we could then reinvest those dollars differently and in a better sense rather than keeping it open. So this was, in my mind, a 20-year decision study, as opposed to, just get by till Terry retires. Because we could do this and we could save all the community concern and the next guy deals with it. But yet we want to position the district in a 20-year plan. We also want to help the state. And that's part of where, as you said, the history of the funding has been this. But yet the state's a little bit of a transition of construction now to that maintenance piece. So how do we transition into a new mindset and a new cost-effective planning design to exist the next 20 to 40 years, really, when you have these new buildings? You're talking long-term maintenance of those, because then you're going to have other older buildings that, what do we do with them? So honestly, that was our intent, to be part of the solution, not just ask for more money. How can we save? And we look at it the same way. It's not our money, your money, it's the state money. It's everybody's money. How can we make this just a wiser business plan? And so we volunteered, and now the study's done, and I think it was well designed, well intended. And I know there's discussion of how can you replicate this as you then look at other districts, because we're not the only one with excessive square footage. So anyway, that was our intent, to be part of the solution, rather than just ask for more and more money, because we, as you can see, we've been asking for money. That's because of what Troy saw, what Stan saw years ago, and now that's what this study says, and I think it's a good conclusion. But we have to go through the pain of closing that historic building, a beloved building. And that's our job. That's my job.
Well, maybe it's ours to help you too. And what I was just kind of thinking right now, demo is a line item we ask for in our budget. Okay. And it doesn't necessarily have to happen in this upcoming budget session, but the renovation cost, to me, if we could somehow maybe put it in as a component project. And the only reason I'm saying it's component is because it's actually saving probably component dollar future requests.
Absolutely.
Do you ask for 6 for component because you can't keep up with major maintenance, or do you ask for 1 to get you out of this recurring thing? And that's where I think that other chart on there that would show I'm thinking politically, how do I present this to the select committee and say your local representatives, Eli or whoever, when we get to joint appropriations.
Right.
And so we could say, and if you don't do that, here's the cost, and actually just the recurring cost to the state, it's state money.
Yep.
Whether it's our money or WDE, but it's state money. And the savings there is a 4-year, 5-year payback. And then ask for the demo money, say the next biennium, because that gives you some time to work out with the locals whether they want to use the building or not. But I think another dialogue to have, maybe at the local level, is with Senator Bebout and Representative Miller, maybe Case, those guys from the Fremont County delegation, from the fact that I'm thinking, okay, you said, well, the city might be interested. Could it become a Fremont County governmental office building of some kind? And so you get the city there, maybe some county stuff. when I was interim director for Workforce Services has 2 buildings in Riverton in different locations.
Mhm.
You know, could they come in and rent some with this state stuff? You know, those sort of things. I know in Lander, there's some discussions on where some of the state services should be there. Could you consolidate? So you go to, you know, that's a perfect location on the main drag in
It's a
Riverton,
great spot.
and good parking and everything else. Could, you know, a one-stop shop. You could show up. The county would have some offices. The city would have the state buildings with state offices could have some stuff there. Maybe bringing in the representatives to you know, weigh in on the state side. Maybe start that dialogue with the city and the county. Those sort of things. Maybe something could be congealed out of that, and or even some of the reservation offices could be put in there as a local resource. 1 or 2 offices.
Yeah, and the
or
reservation
something,
actually
you know.
purchased the building right next to Tonkin.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they're close by already.
Yeah, but it's all in that same area. So maybe that's another, outside of this, you could just start that dialogue and, you know.
The thing to add with that is that 6.8 million of needed repair though, to be able to get that done. And I've told the groups that come in is that I think to make it work for them, they need to get grants or support for that 6.8, get those projects done so that they, for a 10-year period of time, possibly then wouldn't have those maintenance costs. And I think the same type of thing with that, you know, how do we help those entities get that 6.8? So, but if you, because you're thinking kind of that spider out of, well, it's costing this, then this. And actually then if you repair Tonkin, that'd be less than this, all those other entities. And I don't know that the need on those other buildings, but there's definitely the value of location that building has. And there is, you know, it's a building that has the openness that you could use it for a number of things. That 3-story side, classroom design, which makes great office space. Then you have in that open area in the gym and the old swimming pool, those are open spaces that, guys, you know, can do about whatever you wanted with those. So that's our hope. And then going back to the, well, that would save 1.1 million in demolition to the state. So that's all part of that math formula.
And that gave you time to get your renovation work done.
Yeah.
Before you'd have to go out and ask for the money for the demo and move forward for that. So
I've already kind of told the community that it's at earliest 1.5 years out, most likely 2.5 in that ballpark. And I still think that's probably as optimistic a timeline as there would be, and it could be even longer than that. But,
okay.
Because we have other projects that need to get done in addition to this. Those component projects, Larry and Ted will be busy for a couple of years on that. Right, Larry?
Yes, sir.
Larry's retiring. I'm surprised he didn't say, that's not my problem.
So looking at the commission meeting information sheet, it is just an information. I think you guys have seen this already. Just to kind of go off of what you said, Dale, you know, I know last biennium we submitted for the 0.4s and above a district directed component.
Right.
So we've got the 12 people from the district prioritization of the component projects. Perhaps this could be included in the district directed as a follow-up to that idea from the last biennium.
I was thinking the same thing too. That'd be, you know, do you lump it in with the component, or do you lump it in with, say, that if the commission wants to ask for a commission directed component?
Commission, that's right.
Either way. My one question though is that, you know, TAC was the old high school. It was replaced with another high school. And so the question in my mind is, and I think we'll get this question, should it even be on the list per se? I mean, you've got 30 students, but should it really be on the school list as far as the building stuff? I don't know.
Well, it did house other entities after the new high school was built.
Right.
You know, I mean, it did have other useful purposes. The middle school was in there for a while. but
Ninth grade was there for
ninth grade, you know, I mean,
Was it?
so
Okay.
it did evolve for quite a while. It's always had some sort of educational piece in it.
Right. The square footage wise, it
Yeah.
still wasn't being utilized.
No.
And when did you, I don't think the state built your high school, did it? Didn't the district, wasn't that prior to the Campbell rulings?
It was.
High school?
Yeah,
So it was a district funded high school. Okay.
The middle school, and the superintendent can talk about that a little bit. It was,
It was 1/3 local and 2/3 grant, state grant funded.
Okay.
That's the
It
20.
wasn't a pipeline project, though.
no.
That was that's
It
about
was
20
a
years old.
pipeline project.
Right. Okay.
I said ninth grade, actually it's sixth grade. Ninth grade.
I think we talked about 11%. We talked about previous district component emergency. That's when we got approval for the study, what we presented. It was at 10 point some million. We talked about that. District enrollment, about a couple hundred students, give or take. This is just square footage, excess square footage. These are the updated numbers based on the latest information we have. Okay, so this is one that I wanted to have an open discussion about. And Terry, I think you've been pretty clear that you guys have gone through several reconfigurations in the last, who knows how many years since you've been there, since you're a new superintendent.
8 years ago. One of the only remaining.
Yeah, and so here's one thing that, and I'm just being honest with you guys, just straightforward and transparent. So one of the things I'm concerned about is when, and I know you guys have gone through the whole study and stuff and explored all the things and worked really hard at that, but I see in the elementary schools, I see almost 500 available seats. And so we have to be ready to answer this because, and then the Riverton Middle School is 219. You've got 400 available seats in the high school, and then Frontier Academy would go somewhere. So my concern, my honest concern with this is, state statute. I mean, it says that you will explore all non-construction alternatives, commission, before you request capital funding for any project. And so I look at this and I say, golly, so you've got 500 seats available in elementary school. Why can you not do a reconfiguration and put one of your elementary schools, or combine and use an entire elementary school plus the gymnasium or the multi-purpose room to have your wrestling team? And I know that you've talked about it's away from the high school. We still have that issue.
The safety issue, which I didn't bring up.
Yeah, you did it previous meeting. The safety was a big issue.
So,
right.
But that's an honest question that if I was a legislator, I would ask.
And that's for allow you reboundary and push these kids into another school, open the school up.
Yeah. No, that's a great perspective. And here's my thought on that: is the fact that as of today, we probably can't. If we regrow back that 250, I don't think we have it. I don't think that works quite as well with that one. And it doesn't get our wrestling program over there for safety, because we still have the separate, those schools are built, the ones that you would take out either Jackson or Ash Grove, they're 2 blocks away from Tonkin. If you recall, Rendezvous is just across the street from Tonkin. Jackson is attached to Rendezvous to the west on the same property, a block. Ash Grove is 2 blocks further east. So it doesn't help that safety factor for wrestlers. That's one thing.
So you want them on the high school side. You want them close.
Yes.
You've got an athletic director.
We have our athletic trainer.
Yeah. Okay. So what makes, and I'm kind of drilling you just a little bit, because this has to hold up.
We have to anticipate
people.
questions. Absolutely.
What makes that any safer than over at one of the elementaries? who is there or what's there that makes that safer?
Wrestling is a sport where it has potential for life-threatening injuries, a broken back, a broken neck, limbs that break. And those injuries occur in wrestling. The fact that it's also during the winter time, it takes time for our athletic trainer to get the call, to pack his stuff, to get in his car, drive over, unpack, and get to that student. And my estimate that's about a 10-minute time from the time that call would occur. I think that is an important 10 minutes within that. And in the meantime, if it's a serious injury like that, they're also probably calling 911. We would probably get there before they would, but yet stabilizing that student, whether it's a spinal injury or a compound fracture or those kind of things, I think the athletic trainer's access to immediate service is very, very critical in those minutes. So that's the safety part of that we can't get unless we have it on the same campus, the same side as our high school, because that's where our trainer's located at the high school at that one. So that is the safety need. That's the critical piece. I also think too that as we go back to our study, if we recall, I said that if we would have maintained our growth as projected when we built Willow Creek, we were projected to be at capacity K3. Rendezvous is kind of a albatross also because it's the old junior high designed for 3 grade levels. We have 2 grade levels in there. So that one is kind of it's a killer, almost like the Career Center is, because it has excess of square footage. But yet, if we get back even to our population that we were anticipating 5 years ago, that K3 would be very, very close to capacity, right? That one. So I think, and then if you had that, then you'd have to, I don't want to put the state in a situation of going, okay, now we're over, or we're pushing capacity and we need to build, instead of a 200 student elementary like Ash Grove and Jackson are, we need to build another Willow Creek, or we need to add on. I don't want to put the state in a situation to have to add new structures for elementary. And that's really where we're at as far as that excess. The middle school and high school have additional numbers there, but those would be really tight to put another 400 kids in our high. I don't know where to put 400 kids, but we know that by formula it says you can do that. So I think planning long term, that doesn't. I think it puts us in another construction need.
I'm gonna just throw this at you. I know you keep saying wrestlers need to be near the trainers, but if you've got a school nurse in that building, they're better qualified than the trainers.
We don't.
In terms of emergency, right?
If we separate that building out, there wouldn't be.
I'm just trying to. I know with past experience,
and that's
I've
after
been
school,
on those situations where we were lifeguards and we were considered better trained in spinal than in a situation in a building.
Yeah,
so,
and those are after school activities. Right.
And then the other challenge here, so I'm just throwing it on the table, I guess. And the other challenge here is when you look at that 400 number at the high school, it's really hard to justify adding square footage to the high school. Now, I know it's a $500,000 difference between the two scenarios, but you look at that and you go, I don't know how we can justify a 63% capacity and then add to that school for even more square footage.
I think that's one that could be the greatest challenge to answer, to be honest with you. So I agree with you on that. And as we go through the costs, I think there's to me, going back to the idea that it's not our money, your money, it's everybody's money. I think if we could, let's say theoretically, end up with a state support on the demolition, state support on the remodeling of that facility for Frontier Academy and those other remodeling components, I'm not sure it'd be unreasonable to say, hey, we can't justify that. If you're going to add square footage, it's going to be on your budget. I think that's a reasonable thing for us to consider, because we went in this wanting to be a partner with you. You know what? We're not going in here to be greedy and say, you need to give us everything that's on this list. We want to talk about it and see what makes sense for you guys, what makes sense for us, what makes sense for, for the future planning needs. So I think that would be reasonable. The interesting part of that answer, though, is that if we go back and we do the remodel because we want to use existing square footage, it costs us about $600,000 more to do that. So I'm not sure that's a good solution either. But yeah, as we talk about what's allowable and what you can create logic for, I'm open to those kind of discussions with that. And I'm open to any more tough questions you have, so just keep them coming, because Larry and Ted have my back. I know that.
I guarantee we haven't even started to begin to come up with the questions that legislators could potentially
Absolutely.
ask. But Dale, what do you think? And have you seen enough? Does this give you enough?
Yeah, well, I've sat in on the other ones, and I think we've come a long ways from some of the earlier discussions to where, to me, the dollars are kind of speaking for themselves. And I'm happy with the presentation that I'm seeing. And the other thing I was going to say is I also, because I'm an ex-Lander boy, I get County 10 blog, and I see in there all the time you guys are doing stuff and out in the public, and you've done a hell of a job, I think, trying to vet all this and go through, the presentations. I just want to commend you on that. So
appreciate that, because we want people to know.
Yeah, and so I think there's the opportunity to do something here. Again, this is really the first one, and there may be other stuff moving forward. One of the things when I was telling everybody I was going to retire and join appropriations and select committee at the first of the year, I was telling them what I thought was some of the challenges for the state, and that what we needed to look at in select and in the future. And one of those is this capacity calculation for maintaining buildings. We don't use capacity on the state side. You look at the square footage of the building. I know why they went to capacity. The history is exactly this: to get rid of your excess capacity as the districts. But for whatever reason, I think that policy that the state set up has failed. Districts have kept a lot of their excess capacity. So now what we're doing is we're sacrificing the overall condition of schools statewide by not funding at a higher number or more. I mean, if you take that capacity calculation out and just fund it on square footage, you'd be getting more major maintenance. And if we're looking at building preservation, I think that's where the state needs to go. So I made that comment, and I didn't see anybody shaking their head. No, they're all going like this. And a couple of them said, yeah, that's something we need to look at. So I don't know where that may end up in future conversations with select committee and joint appropriations, for the future. And I think that'll make a big difference on the overall condition of schools too.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that I totally agree with that, because many of the buildings were built before all of the formulas for allowable square footage were established. Thus, you had wider hallways, you had commons areas, you had, a multi-purpose area that's not even on the chart type of thing. So I agree. And those schools, even though, it looks like it's kind of a forced shrink and you're going to force them to close areas, they haven't.
Right.
And they haven't, because those spaces are used. Even these, I just want to reiterate, other than Willow Creek or other than Aspen Park, those other spaces are presently used. And like our CTE teacher, Larry's going to have to take her kicking and screaming to give up that space to use that for buildings and grounds.
Especially since the superintendent was just there this week looking at that great CTE space.
The Superintendent Balo was there and loved what we were doing, and thinks more schools need to be doing what we're doing. So,
exactly.
So you have those conflicts. So it's not that this plan is a slam dunk that we can do and it really doesn't ruffle anybody's feathers or put a strain on any programs. It does. It does. But we believe that we need to do this for the benefit of protection of the state dollars and planning 20 years out, because we have those 1960 buildings. We're going to use them. I mean, we're not going to be closing those. But part of the plan was, though, is that maybe we needed to close those and build a bigger one like our new ones. So, I mean, so we looked at those things too. That was one of the parts of this study, but there's not money for new buildings. So you really go, even though that's a good idea, why would you keep a 1960 building and not get rid of those small 200 student buildings and go to Aspen or Willow Creek Design? That's what we should do, but yet there's not dollars for that.
Right.
So now we're trying to come up with a plan that uses our square footage, but yet plans for, and I'm optimistic, Troy, I believe people come back to Riverton and we'll grow that population again, but maybe not. And I think that becomes another question down the road. Let's say another 5 years our enrollment continues. I think in 5 years, we may have to mothball one of those smaller ones. I really do, but we're not quite there.
There's a reason for the drop so much in student.
We had, and this is on, we had, of course, the economic
They had the lawsuit on the reservation.
Yes.
Was one of the killers where
EPA.
where they were trying to include Riverton as part of the reservation. And then who has ownership of the buildings, the land, even though you bought your house, if that ruling would have went through, it might have been tribal land and not yours.
Yeah.
And so businesses and everybody are going, whoa, do I want to invest in Riverton, Wyoming, or do I want to buy a house there? Was one.
Yeah.
The other is there was quite a bit of oil and gas exploration going on. That went down, and there's this big Manita field that's over out there, and it's a big field. This is like 4,000, 5,000 wells.
Yeah.
It's kind of now been placed a little bit on hold. I think it's going to come back eventually, but it's been kind of placed on hold. And of course, when you get 4,000 or 5,000 new wells coming in, there's going to be the guts of that will be handled out of Casper as far as hauling materials. Because I got involved in it when I was chief engineer, because we were having to look at where the man camps were going to be, where the turn lanes were, where we had to put passing lanes and all that. But you're going to have a lot of the workers are going to live in Riverton. It's much closer to, for the people that do the wells and all that, not the heavy stuff being hauled in and stored. That the infrastructure is in Casper right now with the rail and everything else, but the workers are going to live in Riverton. You're going to drive 70 miles or you're going to drive 30 miles.
And the other problem with that is the front range exploration of, well, all this area in here in Cheyenne and all that. It's just more economically advantageous to explore those minerals in here right now.
Yeah.
Just because of the infrastructure that's in.
So that's a great question. And I think those things are why I still look at this as we have to plan for that 20-year thought, not just to what these numbers say right now, and you could do this or you could do that. Because if that does occur, we will get those workers back. And then many a time, those are the workers that have those elementary age kids. And we know that we can handle more kids middle school and high school. We understand that. But K-5, we're set with space. You know, we're not asking for new space on that one. And those are exactly the reasons why I think Riverton has suffered. And we're not done in that corner yet. Our enrollment in the last month has gone now to only being down 4 kids from where we were a year ago. And those are the best numbers we've had in 5 years. So my hope is we're leveling out at that bottom, and that now we can start to have some recovery on that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that answer, because that's exactly the 2 conditions that have affected us.
So if you do have adjustments to this, if you could get with Tobin and Associates and do those final and push it over to us.
So the only thing is taking the director's comment about adding more of a projected cohort out there a little bit and see what our cost analysis is.
Yes, 5 years. Take a 1 year, 5 year, 10 year or something look. And
I think identifying that this is the immediate need, this is the long, projected.
Long-term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good suggestion.
And
Appreciate that.
that'll help me in my arguments if not so much with the commission, but when I gotta do it with select or something, because again, maybe, I think the legislature may be a little less risk averse in trying to fund this, knowing that this is maybe this is the first stab that we, the department, have partnered with one of the districts to try and accomplish something like this. That again, I go back to, there was a built-in mechanism where and it's changed over the years. I think it's changed twice. It was at like 80% or 85% they were funding, and those numbers have tweaked some. And but it's not accomplishing. The districts aren't shedding excess space, and there's various reasons. One of them I'll say, when we're looking at excess space here, we're looking at all their buildings and they have excess space, but you can't just jettison 3 classrooms in this or part. You got to get rid of the whole school, and so some of that's timing's everything to be able to get rid of excess space. And that's a blanket statement across the state, 48 districts. But in this case, I think what we're looking at is, well, we got excess space. We know we can't jettison these buildings. So is there some other mechanism that makes sense? And, spend $2 million, immediately save almost $5 million, and save another $5 million over the next 5 years in reoccurring costs.
And I also want to kind of go back to the beginning of this study. We have come a long ways with this solution, because when we started, even John was thinking, I'm not sure that we're going to need to close Tonka. I'm not saying that that's what we have to do. Our thinking when we started is a whole lot different than where we ended up. And because we just said we have to bite the bullet. We have to make some changes. And as much as we think we can get by, we can for 3 to 5 years, but we can't 20 years. So the study made us self-reflect a lot of ways within what we thought we wanted and what we thought we could do. Because, I kind of joke around. I moved the football field from Tonkin over to the new stadium and thought I could have got tired and feathered for that. And you start with the same idea with this, but yet I think our community is very comfortable now because we took the time, we did it thoroughly, and I believe that the logic of this study is understood, even by my guy who says, you can't keep it open, but I expect you to keep it open. So even that kind of feedback, you go, all right, boy, we've come a long ways from where we started with this design. So
one thing I'd like to let you guys know now, future work for you or attendance to meetings. Okay, you're going to come to the March meeting and we'll do this presentation, and let's just say the commission buys in on this. So then in May, we're going to be working on a draft budget. Then we'll be working in June and July timeframe formalizing the budget. We'll have a June select committee meeting, and then we'll be having hopefully an August select committee meeting. If the commission agrees and wants to move this forward, obviously I think your presentation and selling this to the commission is step one. Step two is if they say, okay, yeah, we agree, it's probably a good idea to explore this. I would think because it's going to be in the budget then for select committee, you guys need to come to that meeting and kind of talk about this is kind of a joint venture. It's the first step, kind of unique. Here's what we found. We came in, and I like that what you said. We had a totally different idea going in, but you keeping, revamping it, having various meetings. Here's where we ended up, and sell those dollars to that select committee. And if the select committee says, yeah, I think that's probably something we could fund in the budget, then joint appropriations is probably going to be, next January. Well, it'd be the short set. Well, I don't know if they're going to have a short session. They're talking about doing two 30 days or something, but maybe the middle of January, they start then February type meeting. You'll probably have to, I'd want you sitting behind me when I'm trying to explain the joint appropriations in case they got questions too.
Absolutely, be glad to help out with that process, definitely. Because when we started this, and I kind of go back to your perspective on it, I'd say we started off pretty much as protectionists. We're going to protect our turf. Yeah. We're going to protect what we have. But through the process, it opened us up to the necessity. Now, for the commission, and Troy and I talked about it, and I know Will is aware that we were kind of thinking of having them do the presentation. I'd be willing to do the presentation. I'm getting practice at it. And I guess I would endorse the idea of me doing it because, you know, I truly know the ins and outs and the rationale, and it's about us. So I don't know what you're thinking, Ken, but
you're getting used to being tarred and feathered.
I get used to Troy asking me tough questions. I mean, he makes me get prepared, and those are all things that are important to ask. So I guess I would propose that I do the commission presentation too, with them there, of course, to add either detail or explanation to the numbers or process. So
Yeah, I think that's great. You know, I don't think we put we just have it Fremont 25
Really did a great
presentation.
job, personally.
Yeah. And the other, I guess the other thing that I'd add into this is that, you know, you mentioned you entered this in a protectionism thing. I'm not speaking for the rest of the staff, but when you know, Troy and I talked about this, what do you think about this? And going through how can we jettison Tonkin and get out of that. You know, I was of kind of the mindset, you know, just early on, it makes sense just to move this stuff around. We'll just get rid of the building. And I wasn't thinking we were going to spend any dollars either. So in that time frame, I think everybody's kind of come together thinking, well, yeah, there's a little more nuances than I'm going to keep it all. And a little more nuances. Now they had to just get rid of it. And now we arrived at someplace else.
And I'm going to say that the process is what allowed all of us to come through that evolutionary stage and to not rush the process either. I will say that I got a little frustrated thinking, man, this process should go boom, 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 boom. But honestly, the time that it allowed us to come to a realization. And then it allowed us to refine our plan as to what we're doing. Because as I said, what's in this recommendation is, I don't know, like the 13th option. And I had the administrative team, I had our departments that were affected provide input. I mean, we went through a lot, and that took time to come to this. It looks pretty simple. You're going, well, I could have told you should have done that months ago. It wasn't that easy. But yet, it was the process that allowed us to get there. And I think as we were looking at it, is that you as a department can reflect back on this process to say what worked and how did we get from point A to point Z now, and if you then come to a refinement and do this again, I think you have a little bit of history and practice on doing this. So
well, I think it comes back to if it was easy, you'd probably arrived at that situation 5 years ago, along with, again, I come back from a statewide perspective, all the districts would probably jettison a heck of a lot more excess space because it isn't just money from our side with major maintenance or whatever. It's personnel costs and all kinds of things.
Absolutely is. And we're talking about the component projects we have. That takes people to get those done too. Even when you get the dollars, it takes people to get them done. So I think it's been a good process. I commend Troy and the department for laying this out for us, and he kind of threw it in right at the end of one of our planning sessions. And you know, it's been to me a good thing because I do believe the state is going from that construction now to long-term care, efficiency. How do you spend those dollars wisely to get those buildings to 80-year buildings across the state? And you're going to have to give up something. And I don't know that everybody across the state will have a solution maybe quite as cost effective as this, but I'm guessing there's some cost effectiveness that could be gone through. And you guys know the ones because you not targeted us. You kind of picked us out as going, man, I just think there's something here we need to look at. And I'm sure you know others too. So anyway,
well, your long-term vision in this, I think, puts you kind of at the forefront of where in May I'm going to have a discussion with the commission, and I've brought this up a couple times. I brought it up with Speaker Harshman and a couple. I'd like to change even our facility planning process, and a pretty radical change in that what I'd like to do is come up with either a 4-year or 5-year look down the road for each district for a long-term planning program that we assemble into a state package for improvements to buildings, so that you as a superintendent know what's coming 4 or 5 years out. So you can make the decision, do I want to put major maintenance dollars or routine maintenance dollars into this or that? And the state will have a better idea, the policymakers, of how much money do we need in year 20, 21, 22? What do we have coming at us?
Right.
Instead of this 1-year look or a 2-year look based on major maintenance and, you know, those sort of things. And within this book, when I was at the transportation department, we were required by the federal administration to have a 6-year plan. They call it STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Program. Years, and it's actually broken into 3 parts. We have a 20-year plan for all the roads. That then comes down to, and it's based on condition and all that, comes down to a 10-year plan to this 6-year plan. And the 6-year plan, the 6th year of that is just really out of the, you know, we think we need to do something. It's, you know, it's kind of evolved through these other plans down there. We got to start thinking about this. Let's go out and do some planning for a road project, you know, put together, you know, might only be $5,000, $10,000 planning study. Then it evolves to a little bit bigger study. The next 3 years of that are you're designing it, and the first year of that FIT plan or the projects we're building that year. And it's a living document in that the commission, Transportation Commission, quarterly takes projects out or adds them in if something comes up unexpectedly. So it isn't just set in stone, but it gives them a planning process, and you got to have a balanced budget. Okay. So it gives them this planning tool to move forward. And the other thing it does is you get, you know, the transportation department, it gets 300 million. The commission programs that money, say 300 million a year, varies. Sometimes we got 600 million, but it varies. So now you get a cost, and it's kind of like what we're doing on the component projects, Larry, that you're very familiar with, in that they come out with a list of projects, okay, and you're letting them through the year, and some of these projects come in over budget. Something changes in the economy. And so you got to delay a project, but that project just moves back. You know, it's the first project to move forward because you don't have the money. But on the other end, you know, your cost estimates, just like your roofs, you thought it was going to be like $1 million, $1.2 million. They come in at 600,000. Well, we saved money. So then they have these projects sitting in year 2 are ready to go, and we just move those in and let those projects and move them forward. So I'd like to put together some type of a plan, because what I've been talking with Speaker Harshman about is, rather than this bust boom cycle that killed us, we created our own inflation, everything, where we went, you know, $400 million, $600 million a year biennium program to $7 million. If we did 250, and they could fund a stream that would fund, pick your number, 200 million, 250 million a biennium, we would know what projects were coming up, how much those projects were, here's the funding stream, and just program that out. And it helps your builders in the state. They aren't, you know, everybody rushing in from Colorado and Utah to build our buildings. We build our own economy here. You don't have people getting laid off and going away. They know they got, you know, the contractors can build up a certain workforce and everything else, and it makes a big difference. And so that's one of the things I want to ask the commission, if they want us to start going that way, and then work with Select to build something for the, and so what we've just talked about today, you know, you talked about, well, these schools were positioned that maybe we're going to need them, or maybe 5 years out, or maybe we're going to have to mothball. That would be in that plan, because within that plan, that would be easy. You know, we publish a book at YDOT, and you can either get it online, or it's a thick book, but it would have all of your buildings for your districts in that by district. It would have all of your FCI scores. It would have all of your square footage. It would have your projection by district. So we'd have 48 districts within this STIP book, whatever you want to call it. And so a legislator can look right at that, because we get questions, I'm sure you get, well, what's this, what's that, all the time. Just pull up the book, go online, get it, here it is, and here's what we're planning for the next 5 or 6 years. And I think it'd be, you know, it's going to take it'll take a couple of years to get set up, but I think it'd be a good lift. And again, you guys, that's almost what you did in your plan. You looked at 20 years.
I was going to say the same thing as you were talking about. That was really the planning structure that we had in mind. This is not a 5-year plan.
Right.
This is a 20-year plan. And that's what we have plan backwards. What do we need in 20 years? And then what do we need to get done now so that we can accomplish and maintain our buildings and continue them to live beyond that? And of course, 20 years, I think, is even short for a building, because we're talking like our high school, that thing needs to go to an 80-year building.
Yeah.
So, but yet we know we have to plan at least 20 years.
Yeah, and in YDOT, you know, they have 5 districts, so you have your district plan, then you have your state plan, and for the whole state. So for us, we could have, for example, every 4 years. So within this STIP and maybe even a 20-year projection, you could list, okay, back in 2007, here was our first FCI scores. And then the 2011 or 12 when it was done, the 2016, now the 2020. And you can show graphically overall building condition scores individually within your district and overall statewide. Conglomerate, say elementaries, are they going down? Are they going up over that time frame? And you know, graphically, just here it is. And put that together. Because again, one of the things they did, we had it broke down by district. Then we had these state projects, and in my mind here, these state projects would be the component, the district or the commission component projects would be another category. Those are they're not looking at your district. That's a statewide thing the commission's doing to look at how do we improve that program. So you could break this book into a number of this document. I shouldn't say book, but this document into a number of things. Once you get established how you want that to go, it's an updatable thing every year. So then our annual plans update all that. Here's the work we got done, component projects on a building, and it just goes right into that update in that book, and you just, you know, keep adding to it.
All right, here, and I listened to you talk like that. To me, this was an essential start for the department and for districts to start thinking in a new way a little bit. And so we were the guinea pigs with it, and but yet I think it, as it went along, I think it ended up being a quality study and could be a very influential study to the state. So
the other thing you mentioned, a couple of your older buildings there, and the other thing that I'm sure we're going to have a study on, because I asked for it in the interim, and I've done a little bit of one-on-one dialogue with some of the senators and representatives, but is suitability. And we started that discussion last year and made some overtures on how we think that ought to be funded. But my idea to keep some of these, you know, 30, 40-year-old buildings from a suitability aspect is almost like the major maintenance. We got the formula already. And so, you know, do you give 0.25%, 0.5%, 1% for educational suitability that goes to the district? And we'd have to report. They always want us to report how it's spent, but your district would get, I don't know, what do you get in major maintenance now, Larry?
About 1.5.
Okay, 1.5, and that's a 2 factor. Say you do a quarter of that, say they put it in at 0.5, so you get $250,000 a year, $300,000 a year for suitability. So you could take out a wall, you could change something within that, but that just, you know, I'm not an educational guy. That's not mine. That's WD. But you get the money from the building aspect, and it would almost be a block grant or whatever. We'd have to say, yeah, you got the money. Here's the building you spent it on, or here's what you did to report back to the legislature. They're going to want to know. But we give that to you, and as the district, you're the one that determines what you need to do. You can either save it for a couple of years to do something, or hit those to, like they change walls, change painting colors, things like that in a room.
If I may, let me add a specific example of that. One of the things at the elementary level, especially, they like to do a large space individual instruction area. So when we built Willow Creek, we built a little bit smaller rooms, but then we had a commons area, a study area outside in the hallway. So we widened the hallways a little bit. And that's the type of thing I think through time, educational strategies evolve. And if you had some funds to, let's say you even retrofit a straight hallway building, you may take out a classroom in the middle of that long hallway and create that common study area.
Right.
Type of thing that you're talking about. I think that's a really, you know, intuitive or insightful thought of how the bricks and mortars change through time, and providing some source to make that change. Because without that, you're just gonna continue your straight hallway with rooms on both sides type of thing, so.
Well, to
that's a
me,
good
you
thought.
know, again, you get these older buildings and folks, some folks are saying right now, well, we ought to replace this 40-year-old building that has an FCI score of a 0.15. I mean, it's in really good shape because it's not educationally suitable. But if we give you some money to make those minor, why replace the whole building when you can do, like you say, take a room or whatever in there within that building?
So, two things, and probably maybe Troy's ready to move on, I'm not sure, but, you know, we kind of do that with our major maintenance. You know, we have our 5-year plan, and we have 1.5 million budget wise, we kind of go, and I know every year, I'm not gonna spend 1.5 million dollars, that's my budget amount, but 150, 200,000 of that's gonna come over here for this thing I never even planned on over here. You know, it's kind of like this little sludge fund that drives Julie up a wall when I come back and do that. You know, well, it's not in there, you know, and we apply for a major maintenance work order because we didn't plan for that. So we kind of do that at a district level, not as well as what you're saying, which I really like about some of the things you said about that. The other thing is the Tobin work. March 21st, 2018. So we've gone a year now and we've refined from this to this, and I think it's great. That's just how much data and how much stuff we've gone through and looked at and everything else to get to where the final copy is. And I think it's been a lot of work for everybody, and especially Tobin. But, you know.
And we still have updates.
Yeah, but it's getting to that point where that refined area is.
Well, just, you know, speaking for myself again, you know, I'm liking what I'm seeing, and I'm pretty comfortable with it myself. Now the devil's in the detail of how we get it funded, but.
It is, and it's new.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of our, I'm gonna say opportunity, challenge or whatever, but I think it's a good perspective for the state to consider moving forward.
Well, again, that's why I'd like you, not so much at the commission, but at the select committee, because I think if we go in as a team and say, this is probably where the state needs to start looking, and that you're, you know, from a school district perspective, this isn't just the state forcing this down your throat.
Right.
This is maybe the direction we ought to be looking at, or it's an opportunity. It may not work everywhere, but in some cases, this is an opportunity that we should look at.
And please give me those contacts so that I know how to help. And when to help. So.
Yeah, I don't know who they're going to have on the committee. They're supposed to be setting those up. I was talking with some legislators last night, and it sounded like I think the 20th or the 21st, they were going to have the interim study stuff out. And then because they'll have the interim study, I'm sure they'll have people then assigned to the committee. So we can work together after that, probably towards the end of the month or something.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. I have a tendency to go long sometimes, so apologize for that.
So to wrap up, we do need corrections to this presentation. If we could get those by early week. I just need a digital version, and then I think, Will, are you there yet?
He's not, no.
Anyway, I think I asked him for 16 hard copies to bring with him to Casper. So if he could do that, just front back would be fine. Plus if he can get over me the new version of the digital, I'd appreciate it.
All right, I'll make a note.
This is Troy. Okay, and then the only other question I had on this whole thing is we can't ask for demo monies without a board motion to demolish it. Now, they have approved the study, but the study doesn't 100% say they're going to demolish it, right? Or is that just the option? I guess it is.
It was determined that demolition would be necessary unless a new tenant.
Okay. So I think we're kind of covered, but you gotta let us know. I mean, we've got probably 30 days and we're going to be starting.
Well, I'm thinking the demo myself is something maybe, let's ask for the money to get people moved over to a different location and then work on the demo, and that gives you time, because I don't want to go ask in July the governor and the select committee for demo and then not need it.
Yes.
I'd rather ask for the 1.2 or whatever, 4 or whatever that number was, get people moved and give you a year or two to get this together. And in the meantime, maybe that's where we have some of the conversation again with Chairman be out, on joint appropriations and something, and see if there's some synergy that can come together. Maybe it's some individual businessman buys that building, and then if there's some kind of commitment from groups to come in and rent from him for a certain period of time or something.
And that's been the good part, how this has gone along, is that it has given us time to get that thought process started with people.
Mm-hmm.
And your idea is a new one. Hadn't been brought to the table yet, so that's great.
And if you sell the thing to somebody for $10, businessman, and then he has if he has a long, again, 20-year plan for that building, $6 million amortized over 20 years with rent coming in, probably ain't as big a deal as what you and I think would be.
Right.
And see where that may head.
Yeah, I saw a budget request for move and renovation. Demo requests will be in supplemental budget if needed.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Okay, we need a minute break. We're doing okay.
2 minutes.
So Dell, presentation, that's it. You're welcome to stay, but we've got another good hour, 15 minutes of talking here, so.
In that case.
What you're gonna do. What's that?
In that case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just let you know, it's.
We've only just
but-
begun.
Okay.
We think we got like 15 minutes.
Well, thanks again for coming all the way down. I know
Absolutely.
the first part of the roads were great, but it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Well, and we did come down.
Thank you, Tobin. We're releasing you guys. Thanks a lot, Josh.
All right, thank you, guys.
And we came down because we wanted to have the face-to-face and good interaction, so I appreciate your questions and honestly, go ahead.
That was just an echo from you. I think you're good now.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, as you think about other things, whether it's Troy or anybody else, give us that kind of a lead time so we can, get the proper answer, not.
Well, I think when the whole staff and maybe even the commission hears this here in 10 days, 12 days, there'll probably be some stuff come out of that, just like this meeting, for us to think about and refine.
Frontier Academy.
For when we get to the legislative side of the House and those sort of things.
And we talked to them a few months back, and I thought that one went well.
Frontier spelled that correctly. Larry caught me out.
Frontier.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good shot.
So you got what, 5 years left?
Huh?
You got 4 more years to
I got 4 months.
4 months before you start, mister.
Yeah.
Oh, stick around.
Yeah, that's what Dell said.
Yeah, I told you that's what retirement looks like when you
I know.
just keep working.
Are you guys do you have any chance to have a way for me to call into those bid openings tomorrow, or
We
should I
can do
just,
anything you want to do, buddy.
or you can call me? I
No,
don't think I'll
we'll set it up.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so let's continue on with our facility plan then. So the district has reviewed acreages and verifies accuracy. This can and does impact your groundskeeper allowances through WDE. Obviously, our database is authoritative and is sent over to them, and they use this information to help you guys in the block grant. Okay, you guys talked about possibly disposing the old Lincoln Elementary School here. So I just did it looks like everybody and their friend at the back of their neighborhood is parking their vehicles back there. So
We're thinking about chargers.
yeah, it's pretty good. It's going to pretty good use. It's only 4.25 acres. And so that you just need to bring that in front of the commission. You've acknowledged that, and just let us know, and we'll get that on the agenda and present it in the future when you guys decide finally what you want to do with that. a lot of times, I think you guys know, and it's, you do need, now the state statutes change, so you do need approval from the commission in order to sell stuff. And a lot of times districts, they don't have to, but a lot of times they'll take that and put it in some kind of a special account that can then go toward facility remedies in some way, shape, or form. And that seems to be what most districts do, but you don't have to. But that's a lot of, if you're going to make money, sometimes districts designate that as such. I just said the APM database has been updated for the tracts and deeds. The property profiles, again, very important because it goes over to WDE, but allowable square footage is important because it impacts your major maintenance. So those are important things we have there. Operations and maintenance payments do occur through WDE from our databases. It goes over there. You guys have reviewed the building leases and verified accuracy. These are important because, as we were talking about earlier, that if it's approved educational program, it can count towards your allowable square footage, and if your ADM is high enough, it can generate major maintenance and use that square footage to increase or to allow you the maximum amount of major maintenance possible. So that's important. We're required by state statute to track that. District, you've reviewed enhancements. That's good. Thank you. We report that every year to the select committee on school facilities, and this is what we report. So thanks for looking at that. Once again, I said the database is up to date. Okay, on projects here, you guys, here's out of our database and what projects you guys have in motion, how much money you have unspent. You guys have done a very good job along with Amber in filling this out. And so with that, are you doing it, Brandon? Or you?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys compete and who's going to fill it out?
I got it.
Okay, you got it? So let's just start top and work down. So 1062 may be reverted.
Okay, so we revert both?
Yeah, on 1062. And all I'm doing is following, and you guys are tracking, right? You got a hard copy? That will prevent me from going up and down, up, down, up, down. Okay, 2723, is that your next one?
Yep.
Okay, that's complete. Funds may be reverted.
Okay.
2764, don't touch. Review next year.
Okay, got it.
2766, that may be reverted.
Why were we holding that open, Julie? Do you remember what I said?
What's that?
27
Astro water and sewer replacement?
I was not aware of the fact you wanted to hold it open.
Well,
So I just $15,000.
says, yeah, you're 86% complete, 15,000 left. Are you done?
Did we have a final payment for 1 year from Colleen yet to do? Is that one?
Not on this project, no.
Your contract amount's spent in its entirety. That
Yeah.
15,000's uncontracted, so.
So everything is encumbered?
Okay, let's change. Now, he does send a letter out in what, May?
Well, after facility planning, and send it to all the business managers,
For
superintendents.
one
just to
final
double,
confirmation. So if you find something other than this, you can let him know and we can halt it.
Yeah. Are you thinking it's done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless there's something that Larry was planning on doing that.
Yeah, I thought we were done. Yeah, I think it's this one I missed.
Okay.
The 2766.
Okay.
2767, don't touch. We'll revisit next year.
2767?
2767.
Okay.
2786. Okay, don't, yeah, revisit next year, so we're not gonna do that one.
89?
89, leave, don't revert. Revisit next year,
23?
leave it. 25, leave it. 26, leave it. 27, oh, I'm sorry, 29 and 69, leave. Don't touch.
Got it.
We're good?
I don't know if it saves you any headache in the future, but 2786, there's a pay app in there to coop that to 100% now that that study's over. So there'll be really nothing to discuss next year on that.
So you got what, 13,000?
Yeah.
We'll leave it open.
Either way, I just,
Actually, since we're running on fumes on our planning checkbook,
Yeah.
if we could put a note there to work with, you're staying 5 years, right? Okay. So as soon as you're done with the polish on the study, close out the books, because we only got 40 grand or 48 grand. So if we had 2 grand or 3 grand.
You're not gonna have any less, not on the study.
No,
It'll
there's-
be paid out in full.
there's a pay app in there to
And we
take
probably
it to
only moved in
100%.
there what we needed.
Yeah.
Disregard. Carry on.
Okay, security.
Security, so 2014, state appropriated $9 million to be used for security capital projects to be split amongst the districts. The 8 highlighted items you see here are what was stipulated that that money was supposed to be used for, had to be used for. And we'll talk about your situation there. We will let you know that another $4.95 million has been appropriated in this session by the state. So that money will be coming out a little bit later this year. The commission needs to meet on it in May to put some rules to that money. But the understanding is that 4.9 million will be able to be used for any of these 20 security features here, as long as you have a deficiency identified. So that money is going to be freed up to do a little bit more with, and that should be available to you probably after the May commission meeting. If we go down and look at your current balance and expenditures, you guys have been active with your $9 million. You certainly haven't drained it, but you've done some good things with it, and but you do still have quite a bit left to use and encumber there. This is before, again, the additional funding comes your way. So you have that 76 plus some additional funding will be coming your way. When we look into your notes, it does look like you guys do already have some ideas about how you want to change that money. You are able to move it between categories, and it appears that you want to do so. You have some left over from outstanding jobs that was maybe just left over, and you have some ideas on how you want to spend it. So your note says here that you have an expended contract amount of $15,949. That, in addition to the 76 that you have not budgeted for security, takes you to about 92,000 currently in these security funds. And it looks like we need to work together, you guys and us, for me to move some money around for you. Looks like you have some ideas on how you want to do that. Just for the purposes of this plan, let you know that that's something we can do. Just we'll need,
How do you want notification of that?
Something on district letterhead. Yeah, explaining how you want it moved, and also acknowledging on that letter that you understand the funds you're moving it from won't be backfilled. Yep. So that acknowledgement will help us there. Okay. So you guys are in good shape. It looks like you want to do a main entry control project, a two-way communication project, and we've got about 92 to spend for that. And then again, as looking forward, depending on what your quotes are, you should get another dump of a sizable amount.
How are they going to allocate that? Do you have any idea?
Where? On the new money?
Yeah.
In general, we're going to base it on the deferred security needs, like we did when the original money came in. So you had a need of X million or hundreds of thousands, I don't know what it is. Every district has a certain, and there's a cost. So you take a total cost, and each district then is prorated a percentage of what that deferred means, deferred security needs.
So
that's,
Yeah, I have to go find that money somewhere.
okay, that's kind of.
So you're not getting 4 million out of it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Right.
I don't get up the entire 4 million.
We don't get We're gonna leave 0.9 million, 95 million or something else.
47 other districts.
yeah.
And that'll probably, that'll be presented at a commission meeting.
Yeah, so in May.
It'll be
So
public.
So you'll get it lined out in May, and it'll be a line item in May we'd be able to see. Is that correct? Is that what you're thinking?
Well, in the bill, House Bill 1, it says it has to be a commission's established
Right.
process. So we will take it in May, get them to approve it, and then You'll have essentially the
Sometime.
old money,
Uh-huh.
you'll have the new money, you'll submit a work order,
Right.
you'll float a raw, draws will
Right.
turn it on, and
Okay,
you'll submit like backup documents, I gotta do
right.
this
Sure.
log
And
in
you
my
gotta keep
package.
quote and you
Yeah.
got all that. Yeah,
You'll
just
get
like
to do
before.
it now,
Okay.
money's on, off you go.
That easy,
It's
that easy.
It sounds so simple
Sounds so
on paper.
simple and quick. Yeah, we're really just waiting on you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Moving on to 10% security, again, a few years back, the legislature decided to allow you to use 10% of your major maintenance funds to be used on security projects. They gave different rules to this particular money. We know with regular major maintenance, we're not allowed to add or change systems, but the security money, they freed that up a little. So if it's a security deficiency and you're addressing security, you can actually use this money to add and to change systems, this 10% security major maintenance balance. Again, you've expended some of that, and you do have a good deal left, again, in your plan here. You've talked about some things that you want to do with that 10% security, and I appreciate the thoroughness of this facility plan because you're telling us already right now in this plan what you plan on, what your planned expenditures are with this 10%, and that you're looking at 154. The reason that's important is because I think there's going to be one more allocation of this 10% dollars, but moving down the road, it doesn't look like they're going to continue to allow for this type of spending. So you'll probably get a 2019 allocation or appropriation to be able to use some more of this money, but going down the road past that, it probably will not continue. They're not thinking this is the way they're going to keep going. So we just need to do a good job of making sure we don't overexpend the amount that you have there, and you guys have detailed in this plan what you plan to do with what you got now. You're leaving a comfortable little area there, and you're going to get another dump. So we'll be able to do some more stuff if you have that in mind down the road. But let's just keep in mind we'll work together that we won't go over that amount. And again, appreciate the thoroughness of your security capital notes and your major maintenance notes. I think you guys are in a real good shape here. So,
And to add the reason to not continue, we're not gonna make a recommendation to continue this process. This was a default because they were broke and they didn't fund. We in the JAC meeting, we had a request for like 17 million for the next security element, 9 million for the next one. They said, we're not gonna fund that, but we'll fund it this way. All I did was dilute the major maintenance.
Yeah, right.
So
yeah,
we're
they
not
didn't give you
gonna
no more
recommend
money.
this.
Yeah.
Keep going on because it just keeps diluting it.
Yeah, so it's like, it gives you a little more latitude and that's it. That's all you gain, is a little more
Yeah.
latitude.
You gain that, but you lose that much money out of your major maintenance. It could have been used for taking care of, that's right, taking care of deferred maintenance.
We get it.
Okay, we're good there?
Yep.
All right, capacity, I think we've already talked about capacity. I put this little chart in. So, great. So I try not to assume anything in these meetings. We do go back 10 years of trailing data. These are data, this is enrollment reported by WD on October 1. We usually get it about December, end of December, and populate your enrollment projections. And then we project out. I tell people don't get too excited about the projections, whatever it looks like. You get out 1 or 2 years and projections, the probability of projections are more theory than reality. And then I remind districts that when we do project out, we're using these for remedies. The capital projects come and we can right size. And so it's just a tool. It's not some,
If I may comment, as you look at the projection, that's actually, to me, a reasonable hope, though, because when you go back 2013, we were 2,600, and that's why our projections looked like we were going to be at or over capacity when we opened up Willow Creek, and now we've dropped since then. I think it is reasonable to believe that we can build back, which really takes us back all the way to 2013, clear out in 2029. So I think that's actually a reasonable projection. It's not a huge adjustment, but that's part of our rationale when you ask that question about what about these buildings' future use. So
Yeah, there's something's going on here. You look at 24-ish, and then it started going up, and then came back to the 24.
Yeah, and that's
So
what,
you're saying, hey, I think we've hit the bottom.
yeah.
We're gonna plateau and
It's
go.
pretty, yeah, stable. You
Yeah,
guys said you're within 4 now? Or something?
4 kids.
4, yeah.
Yeah.
So how these work is you take the 2008, these are survival rates. You take the 2008 kindergarten. Well, first of all, I mean, here's your seniors, right? And if you just kind of follow them back, this is basically their class size, and it comes clear back to, 2005 or something. And so that's all that is. And what we do is we just do a compare between each grade level and do a survival rate. So 2008 kindergarten, 2009 first grade, 2009 kindergarten, 2010 first grade, and you do 10 years trailing, or 10 years, and you basically average those out, and you guys have a 96% survival rate statistically, the number of students that are advancing to first grade. You may have a program where you may have students that are not developmentally ready in kindergarten, hold them back. Is that accurate?
We started our Kinder Boost program, which had a 1-year impact on our enrollment number look.
Okay.
Numbers have been pretty steady, but that 1 year looked like we had to drop. We didn't. That's just because we, Kinder Boost program was really a 2-year kindergarten program.
Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, you may have students leaving after kindergarten periodically and not going on first grade. Anyway, from there, you guys, you're losing students clear up through about 5th grade, give or take. It looks like, let's see, about 6th grade. Is that right? You guys are, 6th grade, you guys are actually having, over the last 10 years average, gaining some students. You hold them in 7th, you lose some in 8th, then you really increase in 9th grade, and I assume that some of those students are probably coming from the Indian Reservation schools.
District 38, yes.
Okay, for Arapahoe. All right, and then you guys have some loss here in the next 3 years. So it is what it is. You guys recognize it, and I guess we'll just leave it at that. So I think we've already talked about the fact that hopefully you guys have kind of leveled off, and will continue to slowly at least stay level at minimum, and to increase in the future here to help you. We know that every student's worth about 15 grand for resources, and so that's we look at this. There are only 23 students down. Well, that's a lot of money. So we were 22. That's probably about what, 350,000, give or take, year and a half. So,
and in the last 5 years, we're down about 250 kids. So that's a lot of money.
Yes.
We've cut staff. We've cut 20 teachers and classified staff. We've cut 20 coaches and sponsors. So
In addition to the funding model going to the,
in addition to the cuts in the funding
changing
model.
the ADM,
Yeah.
not by school anymore. but-
You cut them or wait till they retire and you don't fill them? Stuff like that.
Attrition,
Yeah.
any way we can.
Anyway, all of the above.
We've done that fairly successfully, but we've had RIF as a result of it too. So we've been in a tight spot.
Mhm.
So statewide capacity, we always do according to commission rule and reg. High capacity would be above 100%. Medium capacity is between 95 and 100. Low capacity is 90 to 95. You guys aren't anywhere in there. The interesting thing though is last year we only had 2 in high capacity. Now we have a total of like 7. But the reason is because the commission, they went to a 20 restricted capacity of 25, and then Larry came and complained. And then they refunded that and reneged that and went back to 16 restricted capacity. So anyway, so when you look at the increase here, it's because they went back to 16 for K3 restricted capacity. So the elementary schools basically rose up in here. Plus we've got Cheyenne, who's at their high school level. They're genuinely growing, and now they're in that high capacity level.
And Lander's on there too, and I think we can almost sidestep 100 kids who went from Riverton to Lander because of the issues that Dill addressed.
Oh, really? Yeah, interesting.
They left you and went to them.
Hmm?
They left you and went over there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because of
nobody wants to buy a house in Riverton.
Right.
That's tough.
Because of the unknown.
I think we could almost go 1-to-1 on 100 kids that we lost.
Wow.
The lawsuit's over. It's done.
is.
Yeah, but.
Families bail.
Yeah.
They have
But,
already.
but,
And we need to stop the bleeding now, is what we need to
yeah,
do.
yeah. Natrona's kind of an interesting one. In the schools that they're using, they're 300 students short. But in reality, they took 4 elementaries and mothballed them.
Yes.
So they really have 900 seats available. So it's not as if we're going to run over and build a new school yesterday. So anyway, that's kind of that list. And this capacity list is important on percentages and stuff. And we'll be talking about that in just a minute. I just said you guys have sufficient capacity for your enrolled students. I think that's a fair statement. You do not have a charter school, so we can skip that. After about 40 of these, I'm fairly efficient going through this, but I'm not trying to rush you at all. So you guys do know that as a building ages, you're always doing preventative maintenance, but major maintenance is an increased need. And then eventually you have to infuse capital funding in order to make, more substantial dent in your deferred maintenance or completely replace or renovate a building. So that's an important part of that. This year I just put in how they actually calculate FCI scores, facility condition index scores. We've already talked about where you are here, and that the other 0.4s, except for Wheatland's on here too, somewhere, right here. These two, you and Wheatland Junior High School, the old Wheatland Junior High School building, you were not included on the commission-directed component funding requests in the past years, and you guys were aware of that, and we're willing to go along with looking at the TAC building. But so that's kind of, as we've talked about, if there is a funding mechanism to capitalize on, excuse the pun, that's the one that probably is the most likely that we can move forward with. If we follow the new commission or updated commission rules and regs, you won't see the light of day in an appropriation request, and so we'll talk about that in a minute.
Troy, with my statement that this building actually is the 10th highest need of,
What is it?
Is that accurate? In the report it says the top 15, but.
Yeah, you could change it to the top 10.
However, you have to remember that this one's been, this Fort McKenzie's taken care of, 10 Sleep, that's not going to receive anything. The Lance Creek is taken care of, Sagebrush has been taken care of.
Yeah, so technically
you only have 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm sorry, 5 are ahead of you now.
So we're sixth neediest building at this point.
Yeah, so that's another change in there.
But is that still considered an educational facility, or is it considered a?
It's educational.
It's still considered educational.
Because
I just don't want to overstate something. So.
What's that?
I don't want to overstate the condition of the building,
right?
But I don't think we are. So.
Okay. So this is just page 1 of 450, give or take, educational buildings. And of course, then you have the support buildings, right? The ancillary buildings. This is just page 1 of those, which is another 100+ buildings. So ancillary buildings, I mean, I've just been saying this, and I think it's true, but I could be proven wrong. Well, first of all, state statute says that the commission shall prioritize educational capital requests for capital appropriations for educational buildings before support buildings, okay? So that's one challenge for support buildings. And then, of course, there's a lot less money going toward the capitalization program in the state. So I wouldn't tell anybody who's got a support building, the ancillary building, administration building, the probability of you seeing capital funding in the future is probably not that high by far. So take care of it with your major maintenance, or you can ask for component funding. Okay, educational, this is just your school district by itself. Other than your Frontier Academy, you guys have really outstanding scores on your buildings, at least as of 2016. And then on your support facilities, same thing. So I basically said, other than the TAC building, district buildings are in good condition. Generic, but there. You guys, you can offer changes whenever you want on these notes. Statuses, when we get to major maintenance, work order statuses are updated on a yearly basis from work in progress and completed, or or still open. So we appreciate that. We're just keeping the database clean, right? We've got thousands and thousands of work orders in there. You guys do submit to Steve your major maintenance requests, and he approves those that qualify. You also don't have to, we try to get you guys to come up with a plan and submit it along with, prior to your facility plan, so that we can, it's a formal process, but you can add those at any time. Like Larry said, if you have something come up, you can present those, and you guys get them all year long by different districts, so you're good there. We already talked about your security 10%. It's not an allocation. It's a category within your payment, but it's 10% is not being generated in the formula. Does that make sense? It's just a categorical portion of your major maintenance payment as determined by state statute, how it's calculated. You guys do not have 8% balance here. It was the same as 10% enhancement. So we appreciate cleaning that out, whoever did that in the past. The 10% enhancements monies can be spent on things like teachers, sports field lights, stuff like that, that don't qualify under the regular inventory of your buildings under the adequacy standards. So that gives you a little bit of flexibility when you have needs, but regular major maintenance won't cover it. This is just illustrative of last year. We don't have to talk about it. These were just last year's priorities from highest expenditure down to lowest expenditure. Let's see, actually it keeps going right down here. So that's good for if anybody ever asks to see your facility plan, we can just show them and they know what your priorities were as of last year. We also broke it down by building, by system. So that's a good illustration of your priorities last year. This one's important, the component funding, component funding. The low condition scores, we call them facility condition, FCA scores. It's, I don't know, just lost it. Been working too hard today. At any rate, your FCA scores are your individual scores for each system within your building. The FCI is the total building score. And you guys have 2s and 1s. And every year we get asked in committee meetings by individual legislators, are they spending money on the lowest condition scores and the highest need? Okay, well, instead of us speaking for you, we let you speak for yourselves. We've kind of controlled responses down to status. This just is pulled out of our database. You have a drop-down menu. You can say completed or repair is needed or 5 years out or whatever. And then the district notes lets you speak for yourself, so that if someone asks specifically for your plan, obviously they can see your responses and you can hold your own in that. These are basically scores are applied by deficiency. Percent of deficiency per system creates a certain score, and so that's how those condition assessments are done. That's a lot more complicated than that, but it's good explanation. So this year we're getting, the better we get at this, the more we get out in front and we help you prepare for it. So condition assessments are required every 4 years. It has to be on-site assessments. It can't be some desk audit from some corner office where we think we know what we're doing. So we're going to go out in September, put out develop our scope of work, put it out, procure a professional to consult to come do this. And then the one that I want to point out here that's really important is training for districts. These dates here just help us back into the schedule so we know when to start and how to get this done in a timely manner. Sometime in April, and we will send out in advance of next year, next September or April of 2020, we're going to send out to you guys. We'll let you know. But what we need is the person who is the most experienced, knowledgeable of your school district buildings needs to come to a 4-hour training in Casper. We usually do it in Casper. It's centralized for the most part, and it walks through the tool, how the tool is used, what the tool means, how the team scores, the importance of data collection, stuff like that, the importance of your role. So we'll ask you to come and attend that for 4 hours so that you're very familiar with the tool, and when they show up, you know exactly what's going on and the importance of it, because it is important, because it has an impact on your future and the monies you request and your prioritization and justification thereof for your major maintenance projects. So the other thing I like to tell districts then is that sometimes some districts get a little more touchy about this than others, but they're like, why do you come during the school year and disrupt our educational environment? Well, 2.5 months for 550 buildings doesn't cut it. Can't do it for $2.5 million. If we did it in 2.5 months, we could do it all right for about $5 million and have 30 teams out there. So it just isn't reasonable. We couldn't justify that for the legislature. So we're gonna start in the spring. That year, we're gonna interrupt some educational programs, but these people are trained. They don't, play drums down in the hall or something like that. But they professionally do. They come look. We don't want you to hand the keys to them. At the end of the day, you get the keys back. Whoever your facilities person is, they need to be married to that person for as long as they're in your district and shadow them wherever they go, because what you tell them has an impact on the scores. And so we want you to do that. We expect you to do that because we want the most accurate data possible. Now, when you guys go through the pain and suffering of categorizing all your work orders, your planned work orders and stuff by work order status on all, or work orders on all those things, those actually come back every 4 years. We take whatever you've done in major maintenance capital and we run a report and we give it to the assessors, so that they know exactly what's been spent on every single system in that building. But you're important because they're going to be asking questions like, do I understand right? Okay, your heating system's this, or you're saying you're having problems with such and such, and so they're going to walk through and do that. So you're an important part of that. And then it'll also go through summer, go into the fall. That's about it. We'll be done by the next December. We'll have a new FCI score list. We'll have new FCA scores per component. And those can be used by you as part of your facility planning for major maintenance. Component projects, you guys do have one. Doesn't really matter now, does it? Because you guys get 100% recommendation in a couple weeks here.
In this next commission,
yeah,
right?
But they put it in there because they didn't know, right?
Right.
So that really doesn't have any application here. But I know, Larry, you've been on the. What's that? No. No. But Larry, you've been on the team that the 12 district representatives have prioritized these.
Yeah, I haven't been on the last couple of years.
And we do appreciate that.
That I haven't been on?
No. We appreciate that you're retiring and we can get someone else. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, this is a list of 31 requests, 39 million. It's not going to happen. The most we've ever gotten is 20 million. The average is what, 6 to 8 million. So at the best, it'll come down. It might come down through number 4, maybe not. It might even hit Douglas High School at 5.4 million. Anyway, but we like districts to know where they're at in advance so that they can work with their legislators, right? And if they see, oh my word, I'm down here at whatever, 25 million, maybe I can get my legislator to encourage the leadership in the legislature to maybe fund more down that list. Okay, you guys went into your spiel here. I guess that's a non-issue now. I just said your district has been notified that funds have become available to make a request to the commission for consideration of full funding for the Riverton High School parking lots, and that'll go before the March meeting here. So we're excited for you.
When are you going to bid it?
Well, it's almost what we call almost a shovel-ready project in a way. So yeah. I think we'll bid it fairly soon.
Day after the commission meeting.
Well, it'll be real soon.
Before you retire.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Huh?
We got plenty of time.
Yeah, we got a couple months. No, it'll, because the contract's done. We pay for that on major maintenance. You know,
all
for the design. Yeah. So it's just a matter of we'll be getting ready to go to bid. We'll post it on Quest CDN, put it out in the paper, finalize some review probably if you want to see it, Steve, and then we'll go from there.
Was that work you plan on getting done this summer?
Yes.
Wow.
We really needed that project and we really appreciate being able to do it all in time too.
There's a little bit of win-win too also right now with the timing. The city is using some 1% money for they're in the same constraints we are, removal and replacement of existing. So they're doing some curb and gutter. So we've met with the city. So we're going to correlate with them and they want some realignment of our parking lot exit and entrance to coincide with an existing street, so it's all gonna flow together with two.
So what's the scope?
The scope?
Is it mill and overlay the whole thing or what?
No, yeah, we're gonna roto mill. So this was done phase 1 to here. So we were gonna take the 720,000 and kind of back into it because these patches you see all around here,
Oh, yeah.
they're just terrible in here. This is all disintegrated in here.
And that section's really bad.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna line with this
Holes
street.
now.
And then we're gonna put this island here, we'll move up a little bit, move around, and we'll have an entrance into the career center, and then an entrance into the high school around, because we have a lot of traffic issues with high schoolers.
A lot of drag racing out there?
Yeah, they drag race through
Kind of
here,
separate
so
the two.
we are gonna take some, I'm gonna actually have my lawn crew this summer remove this section of grass, and then it'll all be some extended parking in there.
Nice.
You know, really open all that up, so. This is the piece here. There is, unfortunately, the city has no money to put sidewalks in. We have no money to put sidewalks in. So it's just gonna be, they're gonna overlay, however they do that, and then they're gonna put curb and gutter in. So, on that area. So, I think the flow is gonna be a whole lot better here.
How about the cul-de-sac?
It's gonna stay, yeah.
Redo it?
Huh?
Redo it?
Yeah, it all gets repaved and everything, rotomilled out, but the flagpole up there will stay like it is. And
Just wasn't worth the cost to do.
wasn't worth the cost to.
Really doesn't do much to take it out to,
Then what do you do? It's just.
still, it's just a turning radius anyway, so.
Sounds like Riverton's gonna be my home away from home this summer.
Well, you know, and
And you're gonna need
Hey,
low,
there's
you
some
gotta.
houses for sale, yeah.
Move the family.
Yeah, if you have kids, we're
Can you move me into the Tonkin building?
we'll find room for you. I made that offer to John many a time. Yeah.
He liked it, man. He was wanting to move up there and eat out of the hot dog stand every day of his life. Died at an early age from a heart attack.
Oh, I can't do that anymore.
one of the greatest stories on Tonkin as people went through is
Uh,
that originally the boilers were operated manually as far as the pressure and the temperature. And there was a guy that lived in the basement by the boiler.
On a cot.
The room next to it is kind of creepy. Is where he stayed, but I just love that story.
Wow.
I even found out his
What the
name the
walls
other day.
could tell.
He's passed away, but
Yeah, he probably died from some kind of heat stroke or something.
asbestos. And
Vitamin D depletion.
Yeah.
All of the above.
I did say you're continuing to maintain your buildings available maintenance funds. Generic. Okay, Brandon.
Okay, so this year during legislative session, we have the following bill. I will say House Bill 8, we could run it, or the legislature did, trying to get more major maintenance again. And that was the second year in a row after that big study we did about asset preservation and all that.
Well, that's what cracks me up about Dale's comments. All of a sudden, they want to do this, you have these little sidebars and everything, and then they cut that cost out.
Yeah.
Cut the adjustment out.
We did the study, we presented it, but it had the school dude and the robust reporting. They got killed, came back, no reporting, infusion of cash, and it still died. So, but House Bill 52 is Public Works. So this is on procurement of FF&E. So if you're going to do any FF&E this summer or coming up, it has to have the specifications written in a way that allow local vendors to provide the products. House Bill 65 is an update in the procurement process of a little bit on the architects and the construction side. So bonding on schools was at $7,500. It's now $50,000. Hopefully an attempt to keep more local contractors employed and be able to do some of the smaller jobs. Any procurement under the policy 2013-10 on the commissions, it was at $25,000. It's at $50,000. School district construction, which was 21-3-110, was at $25,000. It's at $50,000. And advertising is 2 weeks. So the intent is to, one, increase the bonding. A lot of these were dated statutes, 1979, 80s. So bring it up to present value of today's dollars and then keep it consistent. So $50,000 across the board in 2 weeks on advertisement.
July 1st, correct? Because that's when the enrollment date is.
That one's immediate.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah, so you got some small projects, you could probably speed them up.
Well, the advertising thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 2 weeks minimum, so.
Yeah.
If you got a big one, you obviously, doing a high school, it might be 8 weeks or whatever.
You know, when I look at this one, Brandon, I'm reminded when they brought us the construction management and school facilities side into one organization, I think it really helped us realize and harmonize all these different statutes and see both sides, you know, and you've got municipalities, like you said, you know, and counties and all that. And so, and they did that for efficiency reasons, and I think it's really paid off, so.
House Bill 78 is the quarterly payments on the major maintenance. So you've got 1 year before this goes into effect. So you'll get a 75 and then a 25% payment. So July you'll get 75% of your payment. September you'll get a 25% payment. But then after that, come the next July, it's going to go into quarterly installments. So.
Keep your cash reserve.
Yep, they did that for the year because of just that. Let's see, student finance interfund, school finance interfund loans, House Bill 79. That's just some legislative stuff, be able to borrow from different accounts to fund school liabilities. You got some utility work, so you might want to distance the parking lot. House Bill 52 is about underground utilities. So the penalty was $500 if you hit anything. Now it's $5,000, and they've increased all the liability on everybody. So the architect, whoever's doing that, will want to put that stuff in the, read this one and make sure it's in the front end bid docs of the construction contractor.
Call before you dig.
Yeah. Yep. Private schools, Senate File 49 is about having the same school type facilities that public schools have. So there is some private schools, one in particular is in Jackson that's going in. Public records, Senate File 57, they've revamped that to make sure people are getting public records responses in a timely manner. Another one to keep state dollars spent locally is Senate File 74. So they have a tiered system based upon the size of the project, how much of the contract value should be going to local architects and engineers. So that one will play into school districts. And then we have our appropriations, which is in House Bill 1. We've got a couple projects. We've got the Satellite High School in Sweetwater, Sheridan 2, and John C. Schiffer got funded. We had a ranch school, the Shawnee Modular. We had 3 appropriations on some old modulars, or they were new modulars, but old projects. Took the savings, reappropriated to solve a ranch school need. We have a lease in Laramie for the Montessori charter. The commission always has a little bit of unanticipated to address any cost overruns. The security projects, which will be taken to the commission in May for methodology, how to prorate the funds and implement the process. Major maintenance, RS means values went up, so you'll see an increase in your payment just a little bit. And then we have another charter school lease here in Laramie, in Cheyenne. So those are all the appropriations. We got $34 million in total. And then as far as the budget request, I think we talked about it. One of the caveats is to putting this thing together because of the new, the Chapter 3 or Chapter 8 of the Commission's Rules and Regs. We used to do the capacity, condition, demo, and we had all these categories with all that stuff. We weren't following the law, which is this here in Chapter 8 that the districts requested be put back into the rules and regs. So it's going to be challenging moving forward, and the landscape is unknown.
What do you want me to put there, Terry? The request, you probably should price something, right? Request for demolition may come in the future after the district.
Should we reference
explores options for repurposing of Jack building.
This is an important one. in the past, we've always had a capacity list, top of the capacity list, recommendations, condition list, recommendations. When you do get capital funding, funds off of those two, deal with educational suitability as you're dealing with the major capital project. And rules and regs, basically the future here is every building, instead of being on 2 lists and stuff like that, there'll actually be 3 lists, and there are 3 lists actually, and 50% of each and every building's score will be condition, 35% capacity, and then 15% educational suitability. Most buildings in the state do have an educational suitability score is based back in 2010 when that list came out. Pretty dated. What we anticipate is going out and actually doing a study and working collaboratively with the districts across state. Probably 5 meetings, give or take, 4 quarters of the state, and maybe Casper as one other, as the 5th meeting, but or location where we're working with all the school districts, inviting them all to the table, and seeing how maybe we can update our educational suitability assessment tool and seeing what that looks like. There's, as we all know, you take any two people in any single school building in the state of Wyoming, and they will have different opinions of what's educationally suitable and what isn't. So it's going to be interesting. The other theory I think that's been thrown out is like Dale said, where there's some kind of a formula in state statute that might produce, or whatever, a percentage of maybe what your major maintenance calculation is or payment, where actually you could just do it off a formula, get educational suitability money to deal with that, and then school districts or school boards then would have the ability to maybe prioritize those and locally and play that local role in that. Or maybe there's some kind of a hybrid. We were thinking about this the other day, where there's an assessment, but there's also maybe some freedom within, how we have the security assessment or the condition assessment. But you've got an objective criteria by which kind of rates where you're at in educational suitabilities in different categories, but then maybe some school districts have some freedom within that to make choices that may not be so rigid where you have to deal with this educate, you know what I mean? It's not a prioritized in such a way that you have to deal with your educational suitability based on this. Maybe it's more of a tool like your 1s and 2s or 3s where you prioritize. But anyway, that's going to be an interesting adventure, and we'll see what happens this year with that. We're going to have to go out and get probably more money, and once we do update educational suitability, we're going to have to go across state. You're looking at least a biennium away before some updated tools even used in this, but we'll use what we have now. Any questions on that? Yeah.
The last sentence, second to last sentence you wrote.
This
The
one here?
district requests renovation of the Career Center to relocate programs.
Okay.
Could we change that to say the district requests renovation of existing buildings to relocate programs from the TAC building?
Sure.
Thank you.
And the question I just have is, on the last sentence, how long until you guys explore the options, or would know an option?
We probably don't need that, do we? There.
I'm going to guess we'll know within a year whether there's going to be interest, and maybe 6 months, because the cost analysis for these organizations is going to take some time. But I would think when we sit down next year to have this planning session, we'll have a pretty clear picture as to whether we're going to have interest or not.
The reason I ask is because I'm thinking of the partially funded project we talked about yesterday, where we got some money, we got some stuff done, and then the rest of the money never came through to get the project. So it's something that just came in my head, where you wanted to demo it and we didn't get the money to complete the project. So
That's my worry about what Dell, and I understand where Dell's going. He wants to get to move first and then come back in and ask for demolition. It's kind of scary in one respect that I'd like to have all the money up front and have it sitting there. You can always be reverted back.
yeah, I can think of 2 projects right offhand where we didn't get the the plan made it to the 90-yard line.
Yeah.
Didn't make it there.
But it's probably, when you're talking about reducing square footage, the greatest risk in the ask is the front end of the request, right?
Yeah.
It's the renovation, right?
Yeah.
Portion.
Yeah, so
The demolition, I mean, it's not hard to sell to the legislature that you're getting rid of 65,000 square feet.
Right.
I don't think that one's nearly as hard to sell on the back end as it is the first one.
Well, and you want to keep that first number low.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they say yes to the first one,
Then they're going to say yes. to the
They'll
second.
say yes to the second.
we'll have the demolition following as part of that information to them. So when they say yes to the first one, in reality, they're also saying yes, even though not legally, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
They're saying yes to the second one, right?
It's just kind of like, you understand.
Yeah, it'd be easier to say yes to the demo and then maybe not say yes to the second. If they say yes to the first part and the
They're right.
you're the second one will probably.
Right, because the first one has to be justified by what the second
second
request is, right? You're getting rid of the old building.
Exactly.
So, okay, so the premise, I think, will set the stage for the probability of a second unappropriation if it's delayed.
I think that also makes it look to the public that we really are working hard to find a repurposing of that building, that we're not just going in and getting demolition. We really want the community to come up with a solution. But the demolition, and we will definitely talk about the need for demolition. We won't surprise them later with that one. That'll be part of the discussion.
Can we say, instead of repurposing the TAC building, relocating programs within the TAC building?
Actually, I'm even thinking of I'm thinking of, what term do we want?
Disposition.
We want to transfer ownership. We want to,
I think disposition's a good
That's
word
what the
there, 'cause that
statute
kind of
says.
covers everything.
Maybe we should a request for disposition right here, is what you're saying? And that is may come in the future after the district explores options for, you're not really, I guess you could be
repurposing, it looks like that's us. We
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah,
repurpose.
I'd say a request for demolition may come in the future after the district explores disposition options of the building.
I
Yeah.
think that'd be good.
Because they could demo it, they could sell it, they could give it
I like
away, they could.
Sell it brick by brick.
Yeah.
Dispose of it
Perhaps.
somehow.
Yeah.
Yep, no, that is
Hard
far
thing.
better because that is not actually what we want to do. We don't want to be the owner of that building.
Right. Okay, good.
But the stink may stay.
Yep, that's far better.
If you did demo, you'd want to hold the land, right? The land is valuable.
Yeah.
Okay, so we always ask this at the end, before we close out. Are there any other ideas, issues, concerns you have before closing the meeting that you'd like to address that we haven't discussed already?
Are there any ideas Troy would like us to consider for the next 2 years? That's how we ended a couple years ago. Just kidding.
Okay, no?
I don't think any.
Okay, good. Staff? Okay.
Conference.
All right, with that then, that's the end of our facility plan meeting. We'll stop it. Thank you for attending.